Good. Mm. Mm-hmm.
It
Not
wasn't
only helps
instant.
that,
It wasn't instant. It took like 5 minutes, and then it was like, well, that's bizarre.
that is kind of awesome, actually.
Yeah.
Hello,
I
everybody.
can hear you guys.
Okay,
Good
can you
stuff.
hear us on this
Oh,
screen?
Yeah, that's what I just checked.
This screen here.
Ah.
Okay, I'll try again.
Okay.
awesome. We are testing things. Aaron
Cool.
has new headphones and stuff, so.
Yeah.
Ah.
All right, there we go. Now I can see what I'm doing. Clean
I
the
could
glass
hear.
in.
You can hear? Okay.
Yay! War. Huh. What is it good for?
Okay.
Let me know before you go to the visual screen. Oh, well, I haven't shared my camera yet anyway, have I? Ha ha ha.
No.
Too true, Stretch. Yeah, rich bastards. Yeah, rich bastards decide whether or not people are going to war, and then the poor PBI gets their asses handed to them and, goes home in body bags. Yes. Not wrong. Not wrong.
I
Thank
guess
you
I
for the
should go
sub,
open up
Tempest.
that. Oh yes. I guess I should go open up that article that you were writing last night, huh?
Mm.
Probably would help if we're gonna be looking at the thingies.
Probably would. Yes,
Yeah.
actually. I'll share it again later, but I'll share the link in the chat for now.
Yeah.
The reason why I'll share it again later. I'm going to wait till after the ads for getting started. Hey, Angel Faye, good to see you. This is the short and long list for the military conflict category.
Mm.
And so if you want to see what articles made the list, that is where you find it. When we are done this video today, we are going to highlight this and we're going to put it on that article so that people have a reference point. James asked, thank you for the sub, honey.
Mm. Self defense. I hate ads.
Yeah.
Don't advertise
2
to me.
minutes before the ads start, apparently. We'll wait till after that's done to get this started proper.
Okay. Well, we're on a break timer, anyways. I put my 15-minute break to start the stream on.
Yeah, give people a chance to realize we're live. Come join us.
Yeah, settle
Yay!
in, talk, say hello.
Hey, Clockwocket, good to see you. How are you?
Hello.
Hello.
Today we are going to be breaking down military conflict articles on World Anvil. What's important to know? What is a military conflict? Why is it important? What are the important things to know about such a thing when you're writing about it? Why the World Anvil military template, military conflict template might just be the best template on World Anvil for the subject that it's dealing with. It's really awesome, actually. right? And yeah, and then we're going to talk about the short list and why people made it on it. So yeah,
Hello, Nat.
hi Nat. If this goes longer than a couple of hours, we will split it up. I don't know how long it's going to take,
Yeah.
but we're going to get into it some meat and drink about
Get
making your
into the
wars and
groove.
battles more effective for your world building. That's exactly why we're here, Clockwocket.
Yeah.
Clockwocket says, I am okay-ish. I always feel entirely unqualified to write anything about even a fictional military conflict. You know, a lot of people do. War is big. Oh,
Hmm.
we have a ad break.
Ad break.
I will wait to finish the answer to this question until after the ad break. My other question is World Anvil still up? No, they're not. Okay.
Hmm.
Because they are?
Oh, I thought you meant the website. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, no.
Because a
Yeah,
different
that's
website is
important.
down.
Can't do this without that. Yep. We're going to need that today. Very important. Actually, what I should do is I should fire that up so it's ready to go. Ad will be done in 15 seconds, apparently.
Hmm.
Oh, no, actually, I'm responding to your comment. Right there, Clockwocket, you said, I always feel entirely unqualified to write anything about even a fictional military conflict. My friend, this stream is for you, right? Because a lot of people feel intimidated by writing about a military conflict. War is complex, it's a big subject. People don't feel qualified to speak to it. They don't understand what the terminology means that they're looking at when they're reading about wars or when they're trying to use the template. Um, I'm going to help. I'm going to break it down. I'm going to tell people what's important to know about military conflicts, what is meant by all this terminology, what the difference is between like a battle and a skirmish, right? You know, all that kind of shit. This is why we're here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have a little look at the short list, the articles that made the short list for the military conflict category for summer camp, which I have the honor of judging this time. And I'm going to tell you why they made the short list, right? And show you some good examples of military conflicts. So yeah, this is why we are here. This is the purpose. Need some sugar in the tea? Yep, I understand completely. That timer froze. I'll reload the page. In case it's me, which it might be. Yep, it was me.
Which timer froze?
In a battle, more people get killed than in a skirmish. Not wrong.
Skirmishes involve skirmishers.
Where did I put my book? There it is. Ha. Okay. Yep, no worries. You still got a few minutes there before we get started proper. I'm excited and raring to go.
We got 3.5 minutes. Get into the groove. Keep rolling the tune. Rocking it back and only for you. Fuck the house, Miko. Lurk. Have fun
Yes.
learning about military articles.
Yes.
What Aaron said.
House will still be there later. Wrangle the house under control. You live with a hoarder. You cannot wrangle that house under control. Trust us, we know. We lived with a hoarder. And Sable's got hoarder tendencies. She just keeps them under control.
Yes, I do occasionally clean up the junk. I do.
Yeah.
I go, yeah, you know what? I'm never going to fit this pair of pants again.
Yep.
And then it goes.
Eventually.
I got much better since we moved.
Yeah. Yeah. And she can lay out the stuff where there's space where she can say, well, I'm going to lay out my clothes on the couch and then look at the ones and see which ones I want. And, you know, oh, that shirt goes with those pants, so I'll keep that, you know, and stuff like that. And then she throws a bunch of stuff out because she doesn't like it. Or it won't
No point
fit.
in keeping a shirt you're never going to wear.
You know.
And that includes, you know what? I hate the texture of this shirt. Garbage.
Yep. I won't make her wear anything she doesn't like the texture of.
So it is official. I know what I want for my birthday this year.
Oh, yeah?
I feel old. I want compression socks.
That's awesome. Yes, okay. Duly noted.
Yes.
I will
I
get
want
you some compression
socks.
socks when you're here.
They are helping.
Yeah, they
I
only
am
cost
shocked.
about $20 a pair.
Yeah, I know. About what I paid. Yeah.
Hi there, Regent Terry. Welcome to the chat. Yes, that's exactly what this is. This is. Yep, you bet. You're in the right place. Are you new to Twitch entirely? If so, welcome.
And Patience is my middle name, so.
All right, we got 30 seconds before the break ends here. Time to start getting my camera set up. I'm excited. What can I say?
Okay, it's time to start.
Yay!
Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Gotta get off this screen now. There we go.
That didn't work. There we go. Hello. Hi, everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Diane Morrison. I'm known in the World Anvil and Twitch communities as Sable. I am a writer of military science fiction and fantasy, and I volunteered to judge the military conflict category for this year's World Anvil Summer Camp. So now that I have made a decision and we have everything coming up for the awards ceremony, I think it's on Saturday, right? Yeah, Saturday, right? And I've sent in my results. I'm going to walk you guys through the military conflict category. I'm going to explain a little about what you need to know to write an effective military conflict. I'm going to guide you through the use of the template, which is really well designed for the purpose. Demi understands war and war history really well and has provided us an amazing tool to lay this out for your players, your readers, whoever you're trying to reach with your World Anvil site, even yourself, in order to keep track of it if you're just doing it as a World Bible. And I'm going to show you how to use it, what's meant by it, talk about things like why sports events and political debates are included in the military conflict category. And then I'm going to show you my short list and why people made the short list. So I have no idea how long this is going to take. Typically, when we run a stream, we start at 11:30 and we quit at 3 p.m. Pacific time. If it goes longer than that, we're definitely going to be doing a part 2. Not sure it will,
because it ends
but
at 3.
yeah, because
Because it ends at 3.
yes, it might end earlier. It depends. I
Yeah.
have like a throat infection thing that is related to a tooth that I'm getting a root canal for. Um, if I start getting hoarse, I might quit earlier too. So,
Or even if she gets pony.
what?
So if you start getting hoarse, you might quit early. I said even if you get
not
pony.
not pony. Oh, pony. I see. All right. So, first of all, let's see. Where do we want to start, guys? Do we want to talk about the difference between things like a war, a battle, a skirmish? Right? Like what's meant by that? Do you think that'd be a good place to start?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So, a war seems pretty obvious, right? It's a bigger conflict. It involves a bunch of smaller conflicts and battles within it. A war is usually an extended period of time, but it doesn't have to be. And it involves a bunch of different things like strategy, counter strategy, right? Working against each other. It can take, like, there can be physical conflicts. There might be not a lot of physical conflicts, like the Cold War is a war, right? Wars are declared. Yeah, that's a valid point, actually. I'll call you. Want me to call you Regent or Terry? I do about 2 syllables at a time usually. It's your choice. And what are your pronouns? Mine are she, they.
Mine are Lord and Master.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ignore him. Mine are he and they.
Yeah.
Mine are he, they.
Yeah. Wars are declared usually, right? In earlier eras, there was usually a procedure that people adapted. Okay, whichever you like. All right, I default to they if I don't know pronouns, so I'll do that, and I guess I'll call you Terry. It seems easier. Cool. All right, so usually there's a procedure. Often it's nations, right? Or in some cases, it's been churches, right? And they say, we're declaring war. And there's a procedure they follow, a formal notification, right?
Called a Casus
If
Belli.
there's no formal declaration, then it's a policing action, which is bullshit. We all know that's bullshit. Yeah, organization template. That a valid point. If you can put it on an organization template, and that's the party that's declaring a war, it's a war. Yeah, absolutely. Oh wait, I missed something that Nat said. Is there an echo? There might be. Aaron was checking for that at the beginning.
Yeah. There might be, it could be a very slight echo due to the application audio capture function of OBS, which is in beta, and it's capturing the audio from Discord.
I'm not hearing echo in your audio, Terry. Okay, that's good.
Okay.
Keon's got a good point. From a historical perspective, like say you're researching war or you're being a war historian, right? Wars are declared for understanding them and recognizing them at the time they occur. Historically, when we look back, that is far less important generally when we seek to recognize a conflict as a war. Yeah, you're not wrong, but for the purpose of World Anvil, a war is a bigger conflict that involves a bunch of smaller conflicts in it,
And
right?
welcome, Keon. Is your
Yeah, welcome.
gemstone
Thanks for
agree?
joining us. Yeah, so the difference between battle and skirmish is a little more fuzzy. In general, a battle is a large group of people fights another large group of people, and like Stretch so bluntly put it, there's a big body count, right? Like a skirmish is generally smaller groups conflicting each other. Like say, a platoon happens upon a platoon, they have a fight, right?
Platoon happens upon a regiment.
Yeah, that too, right? Smaller subgroups generally, right? I say that because battle has also been used to describe what would technically be skirmishes,
Well,
right?
yeah. I
Largely
think it has to.
because it
I think
flows
that has
better
to
off the
do with
tongue.
with body count. Actually, like a a platoon encountering a regiment would be considered a skirmish if some shots were fired and the platoon retreated off into the bush. If the platoon managed to hold down the regiment, right, stop their forward movement, and could deliver serious casualties to them, it would be a battle. It would just be a battle between a platoon and a regiment,
Right.
right? Vimy Ridge, for example, there was a lot more people there than were on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's also valid, right?
Yeah.
Keon's also got a valid point, right? Um, like I said, it's fuzzy, right? A battle can be two small groups going at each other, but in a situation where the fighting ends up not quick and pitched, but spread out and takes time. Skirmishes generally end faster than a battle by and large. That is also true.
Hmm.
Um, but again, it varies, right? I suppose I should probably give you background in this, right? Especially because I'm a girl in what is often a boys' space. So I write war fiction,
Not in Canada.
true enough, right? I have been writing war fiction now, a series in particular that is science fantasy. Um, it's a space navy, right? I've been writing about that for more than a decade, right?
Yeah, as Chris could tell you.
True. Finish the book, Sable. Got it. Um, I have some experience in combat sports. I do a little bit of martial arts training, mostly eskrima. It's informal, but one of my partners is an instructor, and I've been doing that for a long time. I was doing a bit before that too. I think off and on for at least 20 years, right? Something like that. Aaron, you'd know better than me. Remember
What's
dates
that?
better,
What's that?
right? How long I've been doing martial arts stuff. I mean, like I say
Since
sporadically. I don't.
1994.
There you go. Right. I used to be involved in the Society for Anachronism, where I did medieval reenactment, and I was what they call a heavy fighter, which means that I dress up in full body armor and a metal helmet and beat people with a stick that's supposed to simulate either a sword or a mace or pole arm or whatever. Right. And I have the benefit of, even though I'm not a military person myself, of having two partners in my life, one of whom was Army, one of whom was Navy, one of whom was enlisted, and one of whom was an officer. A junior officer, a very junior officer, but an officer. So, fortunately, they have given me a broad perspective on things like strategy and tactics and what the difference is and how you approach it. Um, one of them is more of a historian than the other. And I just like the subject. Am I an expert? No. Am I a war historian? No. Right? Was I in the army? No. But what I am is a writer who knows a little about a lot of different things that can at least make it sound like I'm talking. So, there. That's my background. So, let's answer Terry's question. Where does terrorist action come? I have a religious group that places and sabotages things and runs away. Yeah. Okay. So the modern terminology for that is asymmetrical warfare, right? And the question is, and this is actually a good point because this is writing about this particular military conflict, right? This was all about asymmetrical warfare, a conflict between two unequal parties where one is significantly outmatched by the other. That was the focus. So it depends who is doing the writing decides whether or not it's terrorism or a war.
Or
right?
asymmetrical warfare in a war, yeah.
Yeah,
Depends
exactly.
on who's writing the history.
Yeah, it really depends on politics.
Trust
right?
me,
And
Canadian
what side of the
history
political.
teaches a very different thing about the American Revolution than American history does.
This is true. This is true. Yeah. Often bigger groups like nations regard smaller groups as terrorists. And they, groups like the situation, say the attack on World Trade Center, right? The groups that do that, that's terrorism as far as the United States is concerned. But as far as the
Terrorism,
insurgents were concerned, right, it was retaliation, continued actions by the United States and the Western world, right? So it really often is a matter of perspective.
and it also all depends on other things too, right? Uh, for example, right, terrorism generally affects civilian targets. Asymmetrical warfare generally affects military targets.
Yeah, very good point,
Right?
dear.
You know,
Yeah.
right? Right.
Another example is the Irish War of Independence, right? The Troubles. To the
Yeah.
Irish, it was a war. To the British, it was terrorism, right? Terrorism is designed to spread terror, hence the name. Yes. Ah, that's awesome, Keon. I'm going to repeat that because now this is cool to know the perspective you're coming from. That's awesome. Not an expert myself, but also similar ties, including great uncle who was Irish, South Irish, and was in and around Belfast in the 50s, 60s, and 70s as a teenager and a young man and was, let us say, involved. Fair enough, right? Before he passed, he'd tell me a lot about his time growing up. The subject has always fascinated me since, so I'm an enthusiast about asymmetrical warfare. Yeah. Cough, Lebanon barracks bombing. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So whether or not you tend to get regarded as a terrorist or, an insurgent, I guess, depends upon whether or not you're targeting civilian
Hold on
targets.
a second. Okay, go ahead. The timer was just going off.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, where was I when I got interrupted?
I don't know.
Okay, I'll just repeat the beginning. Whether or not you're regarded as a terrorist or an insurgent depends on whether you're targeting civilian targets or military targets, right? Yes, exactly, Stretch, and that's part of my point here. Stretch says the only reason we all the troubles in Northern Ireland a war is because we didn't want to recognize the IRA as actual military force. Yes, and that's the same reason why Vietnam was treated as a policing action for so long, right? Because you can do you have the right to take more direct actions against a terrorist group than you do
Yeah.
another party, a belligerent in a war, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Geneva Convention might apply, for example, in a war. And if you don't want to deal with that, you claim that it's policing action or some other such bullshit political fiction, right? So that brings me to another point, which is that war and politics are intrinsically linked,
Mm-hmm.
right? Was it Clausewitz who said war is the continuation of politics by
Politics by other means, yes.
yes. Okay.
Clausewitz.
Yes. War is politics. War is okay, I can't convince you to do what I now I'm gonna right? That's war. Yeah. Yeah. Um yeah, that might be true actually. Moon says, well, I'm of the opinion now that type options do not fit this type of conflict, the one that Terry is describing. The details of it's basically ISIS, except their sponsor states are eventually going to announce them, right? So she recommends going to the section, sidebar, content, panel top, and following type terrorist conflict. I mean, maybe we're going to break down the different types of options under that. Introduction to key value. So that might be a good idea. Terry says this is to see working on as the crusade. It is not the same as religion and who are acting. Nobody wants to on the crusade, but they find it very useful at under the table. That's what the crusades were in the first place, actually.
Yep.
That's a valid point. It was not officially, right? Just like the Inquisition, right? Officially, the church didn't actually kill anybody. What they did is say, hey, these heathens need to die, right? And won't someone rid me of this some priest, to right? So, and then what happened? Various nations that where the state religion was Christian, Catholic, or whatever, right? Or in our modern time, in some cases Muslim, right? Went, you know what? Yeah, he's right. Let's go kick their ass, right? And it was the nation that declared the right. So, and that again is politics, right? The church doesn't want to be responsible for going and trying to take the Holy Land from the people who actually live there, right? They want to as but those people are on opposition to their political agenda. So they want to encourage someone to go and kick their ass for them. Right? It's yeah. History does not remember kindly. All right. So loosely definitions. Now, babe, if you wouldn't mind, this would be a good time to open up a brand new military conflict template article so that I can break down the details. I'm going to do the same on my own setting here. It doesn't really matter what word you do this in because the point is simply to show people the template. So
okay, templates. Where's that dashboard?
Okay.
Military conflict. Hello?
Hello. Yeah. I'm here.
Thought I heard somebody come in.
Somebody was sharing screen. I assume it was. Oh, it's Moon. Moon is sharing screen. Moon has opened up a conflict.
Oh, I did.
As well.
Okay.
All right. So, what I want to draw your attention is the drop-down menu under Type. these are the different types of military conflicts that you can write about. A war, we've already discussed briefly. Big conflict, involves a bunch of different battles and things. War theater. Now that's a very specific term. A theater of war is a general area in which part of a war or all of a war takes place, especially if a war is big, broad sort of thing, like say World War II, right? There are different theaters. There's the Pacific theater, right? There's the European theater, like there's different areas where the war takes place, and there are different strategic and tactical goals for each of those areas that come back to the central conflict, right? And now I guess it's a good time to explain the difference between strategy and tactics. Babe, what's the difference between strategy and tactics?
Strategy is an overall encompassing means of getting to an end, whereas tactics are immediate reactions to different stimuli.
Yeah. So, example of this, right? The strategy, right, was to dominate and control the Pacific for the Japanese and the Americans in World War II. That's the strategy. That's part of what they feel they need to do in order to win the war. Overall, they need to control the Pacific theater. The tactics are what the individual commanders did at specific battles, like the Battle of Midway,
Hello,
right?
Lee. Hello, Koragath. Welcome.
Hey guys, Korgath. Korgath's on my short list. Welcome. Good to see you. All right. Let me see here. Skimming back, making sure I haven't missed anything important. Yeah, Keon's got a good point there too. Big nation states ever give them popular supports in the security down. It may not go wrong every time, but when it does, it goes really, really well. Since he brought it up, he, they. Since I don't know yet. If clarify, right, for me pronouns, but since they brought it up, this is why the American government was so slow to react to the January 6th, whatever you want to call it, depending upon what side of the political divide you're, right? To us looking back at it now, or other people from outside the nation, we look at it and we're like, okay, that was clearly an insurrection, right?
Mm-hmm.
It looks really obvious to us. At the time, the government, the American government, was trying to deal with a populist movement, and they didn't want to clamp down too quickly because then they would be seen as totalitarian, and you know the politics are complex, right? So that is what took them so long. Yes, it obviously was an insurgency, right? Clearly these people intended to overthrow the election results, which in the United States is tantamount to overthrowing the government, because that is the only legitimacy by which the government functions. And I would say that since previously manipulated election results have still been upheld, George W. Bush, that means that once those election results were declared, that's the government now. Deal with it again in 4 years, guys. So yeah, right? Good example of how politics and war are intrinsically linked. Okay.
Him. Okay, good to know, Keon.
Let's see here. Strategies used by a general, says Stretch. Tactics are used by those on the front line. Exactly. Right. Terry says tactics is movement in the presence of the opponent. Also accurate. Yeah, they're waiting for the Cassis crackdown. Yeah. It will have to be pretty unambiguously popular. supported, yeah. He, him for Keon, gotcha. Clampdowns have a bad habit of hooking innocent people in crossfire if they pop off too fast. Also true. Right? And Keon adds, and those innocent people will have families and friends who will be angry. Injury, yeah, which makes them more dangerous because they are righteously angry. Nothing's more dangerous than an angry person who's righteous in their anger, valid, and morally believes they are justified with all their being. Yep, also true. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're going back to the template now.
Back to the template.
War, big conflict. Theater of war, a place within the overall conflict where a bunch of different smaller conflicts take place. Military campaign. The Crusades are military campaigns, right? We have a strategic goal. This is what we're going to do to try to accomplish it. Here's the plan overall. The difference between battle and skirmish, we've already discussed. A siege. A siege is when you have a stable area that is defending itself and there is an outside force that is attacking it. We tend to think of it associated with castles, right? But fortresses, stuff like that. That's what those things are built for, is to handle sieges, right? Walled cities and city states of the Bronze Age. Siege is very common, right? The most common ending to a siege is either somebody manages to suborn somebody inside the defending structure and they let them in, right? Or they starve the people out who are defending in the siege successfully. Because odds are you ain't getting in. There's a reason why that structure was built, and they work. It's good technology, right? Duel is an individual conflict between generally two people, right?
Two
If you have
sides.
what's that?
Two sides. You have
Yeah,
a
but
duel between two platoons.
you could have a duel between two platoons. Yes, you could. Theoretically, right?
Yeah.
Usually there's some kind of formal declaration of it, like in epic fantasy when you have the commander of one army and the decide they're going to fight, right, in order to resolve the issue between them, and the winner wins the whole thing and everybody goes home and nobody else dies, right? Duel, right? Also, Game of Thrones, right, where Tyrion was on trial and he picked a champion and another person picked used by the Tullys, right? That's a duel. And often duels are done as a way, like in the broader scope of a story that you're trying to tell. It's often done in order to avoid a war, right? Which it was in the case of the Tullys, Starks, and Lannisters, right? Because except that, of course, it ended up in war anyway. But it's neither here nor there. Okay, I think we all know what a political debate is. The question is why we're including it in a military conflict. The answer is because it's kind of it's a war of words. It's a battle of words, right? You're trying to win popular support for a particular point of view, and you're confronting each other instead of a combative one, right? Yeah, right. I don't know. You guys have all seen political debates, right? So I don't think I need to break that down into
Stop for a
particular.
second.
Mushroom.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Sports event. Why is sports event here? Do you know why sports event is here, babe?
Yes.
Why is it here?
Because sports are just simply tactical maneuvering by soldier groups.
I used to not be a fan of watching sports. And then Jamie, my other partner, explained it to me that it's all a metaphor for war.
Yep.
Um, different, especially team sports, not all of them, but anything where you got people facing off, hockey, soccer, football, right? All this kind of stuff. This is a metaphor for war. Small unit tactics is what it is, right? And the small unit tactics can be used as kind of an anagram for large unit tactics. Also, some cultures actually switch to war or switch to sporting events in order to resolve conflicts instead of trying to kill each other.
Hmm.
So,
The Incans were big for that.
yeah, the Incans are the most obvious example. You learned about their, game of heads, right? But also, I understand that the Maori took on cricket as a
Hmm.
way to resolve conflicts between different tribal groups.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's really kind of just
The
amazing. I
Papua
like
New
that.
Guineans.
Oh, Papua New Guinea. Pardon me.
Yeah.
Forgive my ignorance there. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's really cool. That's really cool.
Of course, it's now a regional game, so it has different rules in cricket. But
Yes. Okay, so a showdown. Subjective. The obvious one we think of is the good, the bad, and the ugly, right?
yeah, okay, corral.
Yeah. But I mean, we could also think of conflicts between samurai, duels between samurai, right? I would say a lot of these things overlap, but I would say I would use the showdown template as the template when it's as much about psychological conflict as it is about physical, right? Half the conflict is psyching each other out by tearing each other down. Most modern boxing matches could probably be considered a showdown. You know how they always do so and so is a loser and a tool in every pre-fight thing so they can like get all the, get everybody's
Hype.
blood surging, and yeah, that's a showdown, right? Intelligence. Intelligence is where you're gathering information about the enemy or whoever your intended enemy is or possible enemy is, but you haven't exactly, like, it's not a physical conflict yet or currently, right? Like,
The Cold War.
Yeah, right. The Cold War for sure, most obvious example, but it's also things like um, the United States and Canada keep tabs on each other. We're allies, right? We're both part of NATO. Chances are that anything that affects one of our nations is going to affect the other. We kind of have no choice but to watch each other's backs. We also keep tabs on each other just in case one or the other tries something, right? Intelligence. We don't openly admit that we do that, but of course we do, right? Um, espionage. Espionage often involves against another conflict, side of the conflict, another belligerent, as it were, right? But it can also involve things like theft of technology, sabotage, right? And
El Knight
that kind of
Errant.
thing.
You're absolutely right.
Knight
Polo was
errants?
no, El Knight Errant. It's a first time chatter.
Oh,
Right. It says polo was a Persian sport originally for practicing horsemanship, and yes, you're absolutely right. And it
totally
wasn't,
was.
except for it was a Mongol sport.
Yeah, war game. Yeah, war game is a sporting event technically. Yeah. You mean grown ass people who act like children on a playground? Yes. That about sports ball? No, 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 no. No, watch any of the family of rugby games and you'll learn about war.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, by the way, hockey and football and the rest of the world, soccer in North America. So, yeah. Okay. Um, covert operation. One you don't admit exists. Right? A lot of the stuff that the CIA was doing in South America and the war on drugs was a covert operation, right? The one where if you get caught, your government may deny that you, right? Rebellion. Smaller group, generally in being controlled by a larger group or a more powerful group, decides, you know what, fuck this, we're not listening, we're taking over, and if you don't let us, we're going to beat you up. Rebellion, right?
Happens
The
on the
American
playground all the time.
independence was a rebellion. What's that, babe?
Happens on the playground all the time.
Yeah, it does. All war is a playground fight, just bigger. Yeah, pretty much. And a lot of war, actually, that's something I'm going to get into in a minute. But okay, yeah, rebellion, right? Okay, I think we know the Métis uprising in Canada. That was a rebellion too, right? You could view the Irish independence as a rebellion. Okay, Civil War. Two sides within a group that technically should be getting along aren't, and now they're fighting each other. The most obvious example we can think of is, of course, the American Civil War. That's probably the most famous. But some of the wars in the Balkans were civil wars.
There's civil
There is
wars going on all over the place. The Uyghurs in China, yeah.
Although you could view that as a rebellion too. So lab, right? So
That's
now
true.
my suggestion is pick the one that you feel best describes whatever the hell it is you're talking, because they could all over. Okay, I think I've been talking for a while. I'm going to. Does anybody have any comments so far? Hey, Kindar, welcome. Roar Books. If you don't know Kindar, he's another writer. He is a Tome Knight, one of the people who plays Game of Tome. He's really cool. We're talking about war, huh? What is it good for? Yeah, the Chinese Civil War / Revolution, depending on ask, is an interesting case. Points out Eldrick Knight. Eld Knight Errant. I'm going to call you Knight, if that's okay. Tell me if that's wrong. And I'll default today unless you tell me what pronouns.
I'll be back in a few.
Okay, where are you off to?
Have a toke.
Bio? Okay. All right. I may also take a break here in a moment. Yes, the Chinese Civil War / Revolution is a very good example of how politics affect how you describe what a conflict is, and also there are overlapping elements, right? And there was another good comment down here that was something like that. Moon says, I have a screen to share of the with a while back. Perfect. We can go through that and use it as an example. There was another comment here. Yes, Stretch said most civil wars are rebellions as well. He's right. Because often there is a party that you are trying to overthrow. Okay. Unfortunately, to share the screen, I have no mic, says Moon. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Terry says a lot of these types seem to be more components, like an event, rather than a main event. Yeah, often. Yeah. It's just to kind of give a sense of scale. We're gonna go through Moon's thing in a minute, which is awesome. But first, when I'm going to take a break, I'm going to go take a bio and whatnot. We'll, I guess, break until the end of the sprint timer, roughly, so about a 5-minute break. And then when I get back, I think first I'm gonna go over to. I've got some articles lined up from Wikipedia. This is 3 battles and a war, right? And I'm going to touch on them briefly, not go into detail. That will be later. right? But I'm going to touch on them briefly to kind of give an example about what the military conflict template should look like when you're done filling it out, because basically it'll look like that. Something that is a conflict on Wikipedia. It's perfectly designed to do that, only it'll be easier to read because Demi is smart. So, yeah. All right. I will see you guys in just a minute. And if you have questions or comments, now's a good time to get them ready, Wall.
Rabbit, 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 rabbit.
I'm back now, but ads are run. Continuing.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, hello. So am I talking too much, do you figure? Okay.
Yep.
I'm very excited about the topic, so you know me. Babble to when I'm excited. Yeah. Hey,
Hey,
Kit.
Kit.
I heard.
Good to see you. We are now protected on both sides. Ha ha ha. All right, are the ads done yet? Ad break ends in 1 minute 30 seconds. Holy shit, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Good God, Twitch. What the fuck? Oh, yeah. Sorry. Lots of swearing on this channel.
Just a little.
If you're
You
new
Most
here.
of them can't hear you because they're watching ads.
Well, people who are subscribed can.
Yeah.
Yeah. People who are subscribed know that there's
That's
swearing
true.
on
They
this
know there's
channel.
lots of swearing.
That's true.
That's why they subscribed.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Shit, did I take my pills this morning? It's Friday, right?
Friday.
No, I did not.
Take them now.
I do have a drink, okay.
All right, we're back from the ads. Yay! Tedious, aren't they? Yes, I think they are. Sorry about that, guys. All right. Terry had a
course.
very good question in the break.
Of course,
Uh,
the answer to ads is subscribe to the channel.
There you go. See, it works. All right. Terry says, I just learned about link parent child. True. That's cool. The World Anvil is complex. It can do a lot. It's very powerful. It takes a little bit to learn. It's got a bit of a learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth it to spend the time. It's awesome, right? And Terry is wondering if we could address the organizational aspects of depicting a long-running conflict that includes active hot periods, cold political periods, and also do it via timeline, do it in parent-child article series, how to organize chronologically and/or by concept, etc. That is a very good question. I have a couple of different answers to that. Right? Aaron's suggestion of using a timeline is very effective, and it's one of the things that I'm doing to organize events in part of a conflict in my series, The Toy Soldier Saga. I find that effective because it gives me a sense of things unfolding and the order in which they unfold in. A chronicle is what we use for Game of Tomes, which is a series in an overall conflict that you can. So if it's a big thing, chronicle might be the way to go. Chronicle is a bit scary because it seems complicated. Moon can show you how to do it. Yes, we will try to find time to do that because that is awesome. Yes, I think it's a very good way to do it. We do that for Game of Tomes. It's the thing that makes sense for Game of Tomes. You might also want to do it if you're thinking theaters, right? Because it's based on a map. It's like if you wanted to deal with the Pacific theater in World War II using a map of the Pacific as your basis and then using the Chronicle may be very effective for that. So I might actually, it's something that I haven't gotten around to yet, but I intend to do. Another way in which I'm going to order Toy Soldier Saga is to use wormhole systems map, because this is how different areas of space communicate and travel to and from each other as worms, right? Which is a very different set of geography space. It's interesting, but I'm probably going to use that for the chronicle basis, and then go from there and lay out that way. But let me give you another example. This is why one of these articles in particular made it on the short list. Dear, if you could go to the article that I shared there, and the very first article on the short list, if you could share it, that would be perfect.
The War of Sunset Pass.
The War of Sunset Pass, yes. Okay, I'm going to open up my own copy here so I can go through it. So I'm not currently in chat, so Aaron, interrupt me if I need to be. All right. I loved the way, what was the name of this? Wolfenfire. Yes, I knew Wolfenfire. I knew it was something. Okay. Wolfenfire has laid out a war in a way that I think is very efficient. What they have done is they have used point form descriptions of the important elements of the conflict in a summary. I think this is brilliant, and I intend to steal this structure talk to explain the individual wars that happen within the Game of Tomes. For those who are unfamiliar with the Game of Tomes, it is a game that we play here on Twitch. It is a writer's game. You join a team, which is called a house. Your words count towards that team. We track it via a bot that operates through Twitch channel points. The house with the most words at the end of the month wins. We run in 3 NaNoWriMo months, which is April, July, and November. The November conflict is a war. The other two are tournaments, right? The idea is that every year a night monarch appears who starts forming an undead horde. The undead horde, when a house is eliminated, which they are now every 6 days, was every 5, but now it's every 6, right? That's the house with the least number of words is eliminated. 1/3 of them are drafted by the undead horde. It's chosen randomly by a wheel, right? And the undead horde grows, and they are trying to take an artifact called the Iron Tome, which the living tome knights or are trying to defend against, right? So there have been 3 wars in this overall broad conflict, which is known as the Tome collectively by now, right? Every year in November, right? We just finished World War III in last November. So this is how I'm going to lay out each of the individual. It's like this. I think this makes a sense. Now, what they've done, they've got background. Here are the important parties. This could also have been done in the belligerence section. We'll get there, right? But very simply, these are the parties involved, and this is this is what they're trying to do. Conflict, right? They've laid out important elements, right? Strategic importance of Sunset Pass. This is why they're fighting over this area. Initial skirmishes. This is how things started. War's escalation. This is how things progressed and why they progressed in the way they did, right? Major battles and tactics. They've listed some of the major important conflicts, right? The resolution, the war ended at a stalemate and there was a right? And aftermath and legacy, right? This article, this is getting into it a little early since you the question of how do you lay, right? This is a great example of how you might do it. This is also an example of how you can write a really effective military article without having to spend a whole shit ton of words on it, right? This is pretty simple, and it makes the war very clear. I understand exactly what happened, why it happened, who was involved, what the major elements of it were and what the long-term consequences were. Brilliant. It's brilliant, right? So perfect example of that. I will share the link. That is the link to that particular article. Very good example of how you might want to handle it. One of the things I was going to look at, I have a couple of different windows open. I am going to share with you a little bit of information about the Wikipedia article on World War II, and then 3 of the major important battles that took place in World War II, one of which was a land battle, one which was a sea battle, and one which was an air battle. Right, so going to World War II, this is also a good way to lay it out. And honestly, if you follow the template, you will end up in particular with a lot of the information that is in the sidebar of the Wikipedia article. And it will also appear in your sidebar in your military conflict article when it is complete, right? They break down things like the dates, how long did this last? When did it start? When did it end? Right? Locations, right? This is the battleground section. This will actually appear in the main body of your article. Flesh it out more than they have here. They've got a couple of major theaters listed. Remember, I talked about what a theater was, right? In the Wikipedia World War II article. The result, right? Oh, and they've got, the overall result, Allied victory, and then what that meant, right, in terms of long-term consequences. Things like the Nazi Germany, Fascist Italy, Imperial Japan, Allied military occupations of Germany, Japan, Austria, Korea, beginning of the nuclear age, because of course we know all about the use of nuclear bombs in World War II, I'm sure. The dissolution of the League of Nations and creation of the United Nations, decolonization of Asia and Africa and decline of European international influence, emergence of the United States and the Soviet Union as superpowers, and beginning of, right? So these are the things that will appear in your like short-term consequences is where you would put things like the fall of Nazi Germany, fascist Japan, the Allied occupations, right? And possibly the dissolution of the League of Nations. Long-term legacy, right, is where you would put stuff like beginning of the nuclear age, creation of the United Nations, decolonization of Asia and Africa, emergence of the United States and Soviet Union powers, right? So the World Anvil template breaks that up a little bit, which I like because that gives you opportunity to flesh it out and explain why it's important. We understand by a glance why the decolonization of Asia and Africa are important, right? But somebody who's new to your world, so that gives you an opportunity to explain it. Participants, this is where you're, I think it says when you're filling it out in the template itself, and it will appear on your sidebar if there's 2 parties, right? Or underneath the article, the footer section, if it's more than 2. These are your belligerents. Belligerents are the combatant sides in a conflict, right? So, or 2, we have the Allies and the Axis, right? Then it breaks down who are the commanders and leaders, the Allied forces and the Axis, right? All people you've heard of, obviously. Casualties and losses. This is where we deal with things like the number of dead, maybe the number of wounded, if we're talking about battle specifically. It's usually not used for all war to describe because it's just too big to break it down any more than that. So here we're very specifically talking about dead, but you can also have further details. I like the way they break this down in the Wikipedia article. Or 2, we have military dead, civilian dead, total dead on either side, right? Now, in this sidebar, you're also encounter a thing called strength, right? And that will be more useful in the battle articles. I'll show you, actually. We're going to go to the first battle I have, which is Battle of the Bulge. This is a major land battle that took place in World II. I think this is where they started talking about, yes, now they have a section called strength. Strength is the type of troop you have and how many you have. I'm emphasizing this because one thing I noticed, a lot of people were putting stuff like, superior technology. That's not really what we're looking for here. We're not really looking for, yeah, that's a strength. But when you're talking about strength in a military context, you are talking about how many troops, what kind, right? So this breaks down the details of specific dates in which engagements took place within the overall Battle of Bulge, which took place from, it's like 3 months or something, I think it was. No, 1 month, 1 week, 5 days. It took place from the 16th of December 1940 to the 28th of January 1945, right? And in that time, there were a couple of major dates in which engagements took place: the 16th of December, the 24th of December, the 2nd of January, etc. Under each of these dates, under strength, they've got the number of troops, the number of tanks, the number of tank destroyers and assault guns, armored vehicles, anti-tank artillery, infantry, armored divisions, this kind of stuff. Infantry is guys on foot with weapons. Cavalry is guys on horses or in tanks.
And helicopters.
Yeah, and helicopters. Yeah, because helicopters usually do, like, troop transport and medevac, right?
Like cavalry duties.
Yeah, like cavalry duties. So that's the difference between, an armored is cavalry, right?
Yeah.
So they're interchangeable. I'm not going to break down different types of military because you look that up, right? You can look up things like how many are in a brigade, how many division, right? A lot of these terms are all fuzzy. It's kind of like, where does a novel start, right? Is a novel 50,000 words or more? 5,000. Depends on task, right? Yeah, so that's got some good examples. I just wanted to show you the type of information that's provided there. If I could advise you, right, I would suggest that you look up World War II, Battle of the Bulge, the Battle of Midway, right, which is, of course, an enormously important naval battle that took place in World War II, right? And that was a single day, or no, 3 days battle, right? And the Battle of Britain, which was 3 months and 3 weeks, because these are all different types of battles, right? Like the first one is a land battle that was really important. The second one is a naval battle, and the third one is an air battle, right? These are fought in different ways. People have different tactics when approaching them. Strategies are similar, but tactics are a response to a situation. They're fought with different methods
Tactics
of
is doing
attack and
what you
defense.
can with what you have.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I'm going to make that list and put it in the chat here. Right. World War II, Battle of the Bulge, Battle of Midway, Battle of Britain. And the reason why you would look up is because they're all, obviously, there are major battles within the overall that was World War II, where you are looking at how you would deal with things on land, in the sea, and in the air.
Okay,
Yeah.
Terry, you were saying you noticed there was no real way to list belligerents versus aligned parties. In a war, all sides are belligerents.
Okay.
Right.
Yes. Let me explain within the context of the World Anvil template, right? You would include all the sides that are fighting together under one party. If they are united and they have the same strategic goal, they are co-belligerents, right? And you would put them under one label together. Let me show you, right? In World War II on Wikipedia, right? The belligerents, no, that's not a good example. Okay, maybe it's let me see here.
Belligerents, go to the Battle of the Bulge.
Battle of the Bulge. Okay, so on one side for belligerents, we have the United Kingdom and Canada, right? On the other side, we have Germany. These are the parties that have unified or not goals in the conflict, right? So if they're all fighting together, they're all one side. You'll notice that the commanders and leaders, you have Americans and Brits listed under the commanders and leaders of the United States, United Kingdom, and Canada side, the Allied troops, right? But it's all German leaders under the German side, right? I have another example. Let me see. Where is my? Here's an article I wrote. Where? No, that's not what I want to do. Where? New tab. Okay, so this is a military article. This is something that was part of the Game of Tomes called the Battle of Kin Beach. In this, the Woodlander, which comprised houses, Millie's, Lappin, and Ilurus, were fighting together as one side against the undead horde. So if you look down on the sidebar of the article, you will see that the Woodlanders are listed under one set of belligerents, and the undead horde is listed on the other. The leaders of the Woodland Family Alliance were the leaders, or some of the leaders of the three houses, but not necessarily, right? Because the leader of House Ilurus was doing something else at the time. They were fighting another battle called the Battle of Aldergrove, which took place simultaneously, right? But Darth Nicholas is the leader of House Millie. Sable Aradia, me, right, is the leader of House Lappin, and Tempest Quake is one of the House Lappin leaders who was also serving a command function at the time and took command when Sable was injured to the point that she could not fight anymore, right? The Undead Horde at the time also had two leaders, but only one of them was on this battlefield there, Lord Galacrond, right? And then you'll see a breakdown of strength where I'm talking about the types of troops and how many, right? Casualties, dead, right? And injured. So, yeah, that's how you would do that. On the other hand, if they all have different goals, you would list them as separate parties. Let me see, what was the example of that? In the short list, I think it's the second to last article, Vorkaz's invasion of Muscor is what
Okay.
I would look at for that. I believe they had three parts. Yes, they do.
Rabbit, rabbit, rabbit,
So-
rabbit, 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 rabbit.
Okay, the Vorkaz invasion of Muscbar.
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
So there are three belligerents, and therefore, bottom of the article. One was the host of Xantor Ildron of Vorkaz, right? And they had one strategic goal. Then there was Vadar Mikhal's expedition, right, which had a different strategic goal, and the bands, the Carrion Basin, which have a third strategic goal. Presumably, they're all fighting each other. So yeah, that's how you differentiate. Does that answer the question? Strategy is strategy and tactic. Terry says strategy can have if you think you're going to need. Yes, tactics is using it. And or as Stretch says, strategy is what you. Tactics is what you do when you get there and find you're totally fucked. Yes. Yes. In my opinion, bad commanders dictate a strategy and get mad when the people on the ground can't do it. Good commanders give a strategy and then trust the people on the ground to carry it.
It'll be in a VOD there, Flub.
Yes. If a party is providing support to a belligerent, they are a co-belligerent.
Yeah.
Yes, you could list them as that, or you
When
could
you're,
note this under special conditions.
yeah.
Real world example, the war in the Ukraine, right?
Yep.
Officially, NATO has not joined because officially they do not want to be recognized as being in a war with Russia. For many reasons, the big one
Yeah.
of which being everybody believes Putin's probably crazy enough to push the red button, right?
Yep.
So we don't. Instead, what we do is provide support to the Ukraine. The support is pretty, I mean, like, we're dancing on the edge of the point where it's like, yes, we're providing support, and yes, we're actually fighting the war, right?
Yeah.
We're,
Canada's more on the edge of that than the United States is.
you know, we all are, right? But Canada's people over there, you know, training people, right? You
Yeah.
know,
Training people in the battlefield.
yeah. And you know, if they happen to get shot at back, you know, that, yeah, it's again, we go back to politics and war are intrinsic, right? So you could list Canada, or you could list NATO as belligerent with the Ukraine, right? Or you could note that the Ukraine is one belligerent, and NATO provided extensive support to the Ukraine in another section. China and Iran toe dipping with Russia, exactly. Serious proxy war, exactly. So yeah, you could look at it either way. But that was a very good question. There's a couple of very good questions there. Yeah. And I see that Moon was answering questions about Game of Thrones, which is cool. Okay. Where was I going to go next? Yes, we're going to break down the template. Back to Moon's example, please. And thank you.
Moon's example template.
Moon was sharing her screen.
Yeah.
Where she was showing us a military conflict article in her War 3, which I helped her with.
Yeah.
Oh. So I'm going to go back to the open template article that I have. Okay. So let's break down the different sections. The first thing you see on the display is prelude, right?
Yeah. Well, you got your vignette and the prelude.
Yeah, vignette, then the prelude. Vignette is summary. What is this shit? Why is it important? You know? What did Moon write for Word? Can we read it?
I can't read it. I can't read it.
I'm going to try to full screen it so I can.
Oh,
There we go. Thank you, Moon. That's helpful. World War III was a massive, pitted most of the major world powers against each other for the limited oil supplies left. The war completely devastated the previous balance of power, destroyed most nations, and completely remade geopolitical and economic borders. That's pretty fucking important. You really might want to know. Yes. All right. The conflict. Prelude. Prelude is the stuff that led up to the war, sort of caused it, right? Why did the war start? If you were talking about the prelude of World War I, you would talk about the assassination of, what is his name? I never Ferdinand.
Ferdinand Barbarossa, wasn't it?
No.
No. Frederick Barbarossa is what I'm thinking now. Ferdinand.
Archduke Franz Ferdinand, I think it is.
That's
But
the one. Thank you.
Franz Ferdinand. Yes, that's right.
Right. You would talk about that as a trigger, right? And then you would talk about. Thank you very much, Tempest. This is very helpful. Right. Then you different treaties that existed between different co-belligerent nations to defend each other, right? These were the things that led up to it. One thing they never talk about, but should, as a factor in the prelude section of one, is colonial aspirations of each of the nations, right? They were trying to control the world like it was the Risk game, and that was definitely also part of it. Okay. And then we get into deployment. Deployment is where you sent the troop and why you sent them there, basically, right? What troops did you send?
And there's always deployments. You said there was no real deployments in your war, but if there's conflict, there's deployments.
Right.
Right. You know, it may not be an official deployment, go here and fight them, right? But if you're going here and you end up fighting them, that's a deployment.
You know what, Moon? Could you drop your article link in the chat so that people can follow along, since we're using your as an example?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So deployment. If you're talking about a terrorist, the deployment starts with the suicide bomb.
Right.
Right. Or you know, an unknown number of guerrilla fighters planted bombs in several cars in downtown London, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. That's deployment. Right. Also, the response is a deployment. The you know, I don't know who typically responded to bombs. I assume that, you know, bomb squads were called out to deal with
Scotland
car
Yard,
bombs
yeah.
or the threats of car, right? Police would show up. These would all be deployments, right? For the yeah, right. It's all deployments. Deployment in an intelligence act. Queen Sable sent Commander PM Stretch to infiltrate this corporation, which was doing evil shit to Tome Knights, and in order to find out information. Deployment. Right? Moon's got a great way of putting this here. On June 22 June 2050 CE, the United States declared war on the alliance of. Within 3 days, the fighting began with an air raid on the city of Urmia in Iran. Within weeks of the war declaration by Russia invaded the Ukraine. China invaded Kazakhstan with talking too fast. Within 6 months of start making enemies of Russia in the process, China began to attack the alliance of the Middle East through Kazakhstan, while also sending to U.S. soldiers via the same route. The European Union was brought into the from Russia after months of sending aid to the Ukraine. Most of Central and South America at this time and declared hostility towards the United States, although they would not declare war for additional weeks. Right. So that's actually a real deployment for like a war, because it's so big, you kind of have to speak groups. Looking back at World War II, gonna find their section here. Lots of stuff on the prelude section for. They start looking at this with course of the war, right? As they're heading, war breaks out in Europe, Western Europe, right? And they break down over time, kind of in general groups. Now, I'm sure in the Battle of the Bulge, this is killed. Operation names, planning, yes. Yeah, so they start with initial German for what would be in the deployment section, right? And they, break down the strength again, or the different units that were sent. Then they say, and then they start into the course of the battle. The course of the battle isn't up. So let me see. Back to Moon's example. Battlefield is the next thing that appears. Battlefield. Where did the shit take place? Right? And what was in some cases, right? Like, why was that a major battleground? Right? So Moon wisely broke this down in terms of theaters in the overall war. The Eastern Theater fought primarily east and west ground troops. The Pacific Theater fought primarily in the Pacific Ocean with ships and submarines. The American Theater fought primarily in Central America and Southern ships and ground troops. The European Theater fought primarily ground troops. The Arctic Theater fought primarily Circle and Northern North America with aircraft, naval ships, and submarines. Yeah. So this is, I mean, when you're talking about a war, if you're talking about, this is easiest done with things like pretty much anything the Iron Age and Bronze Age through to like the 18th and centuries, right? Because people would meet at a particular place and attack each other. This becomes much more complex. You know, urban warfare is a thing. Hello?
I'm sorry.
And, air battles are a thing, right? So no place is. In the Battle of the Bulge, this is talked about in the terrain specifically. And this is also where you would make things like, the terrain was really marshy, right? Or you could mention that under conditions, probably lap. Or this particular pass on the mountain had to be captured because otherwise nobody could get through. You had to control it to make sure your guys could.
For example, in the Cold War, we all knew that the battle would take place in the Volga Gap, right? It's the only way between Russia and Europe, right? Over land. So everything that we designed during the Cold War was designed for a war that was going to take place in the Volga Gap, right? They had everything pre-planned out to the point where they knew that people in my profession in the Navy had a 2-minute survival rate. Once the initial fighting started, you were going to be alive for 2 minutes. People people in Jamie's profession had an average survival rate of 37 seconds. Right? So we knew that it was just going to be a bloodbath and a slaughter. Right? But it was the only way that tactics would work to go through there. So the strategy was defend the Volga Gap. That's all I got to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, battleground location, right?
Good night,
The
Nat.
Battle of the Bulge, it says, took place in the Ardennes, which were part of Belgium, Luxembourg, Germany, right? I remember what struck me about the Battle of the Bulge is that show Band of Brothers, and the it was about the blank Charlie Company, right?
Charlie
And
Company, 82nd Airborne.
yep, right? And it was like the battleground was mostly, and it was fucking cold, right? And this was a real factor. This is cold thing. This is something you would put under conditions. The fact that it was heavily wooded is something you might put under battleground, right?
Yeah.
Battlefield, because these things both affected how the battle fought. For one thing, when it's really wooded, you can't see,
Yeah.
right? You have no idea what's in there, right?
Yeah.
So, um, in this particular case, Charlie Company dug in the. So a lot of the time, the Germans just bombed the shit out of the trees, right?
Yeah.
Not knowing what they were,
Well, the
you
other
know.
thing about it is too is that when trees are really cold, they explode.
Yeah, so splinters everywhere, severe
All right.
conditions. Right.
Yeah.
When I wrote about the Battle of Kin Beach, the battleground was actually shallow water and the beach that was Kin Beach. The conditions included things like it was fucking cold. The people who ended up fighting in water generally had to be treated for hypothermia. You know,
Mm-hmm.
has a bearing, right? So these are the kind of things you keep in mind, that kind of stuff. Back to Moon's example. Yeah. Now, I think Moon didn't fill out the engagement section because, and that is perfectly valid, which is the other thing. Use the parts that matter, right? Don't use the parts that don't, like they say. Engagement is what happened, why did it happen, right? Like this is when the fighting started. This was the result of that initial clash. Then this clash happened, and that was the result of that. And then this clash, and then that was the conclusion, right? So if Moon were going to go into detail, what it might be beneficial for her to do is to break down what happened in each theater, right? The American theater ended this way, the Pacific theater ended that way, that kind of thing, right? And that would give you an overall picture of the course of the. In the Battle of Kin Beach, I kind of described a natural progression because it was a much smaller scale conflict, right?
Okay. Yeah. All right. Moon would like to point out that conditions would also be a good place to put political hesitancy, such as an unwillingness to use chemical or nuclear warfare.
Yes. Yep, that's a good point.
All right.
Conditions are also a good place to put. It was really freaking wet at the Battle of Agincourt,
Yeah.
and that's
what killed them.
That's what decided the battle ultimately. That and
Because
archery.
10,000 archers. Yeah.
If you're stuck in mud and you can't get out of it because your armor's too heavy,
And your
archers are
horses
raining
can't
arrows down on
charge.
hurricane, you're toast. You know.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's that first page in the template, except for start date and end date, which I think are pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Right. Repercussions. We have a short line for result. Victory of the Allied force. If we're giving, there's an example, right? And then, like I said, it breaks down outcome, short-term effects, aftermath, long-term effects, and legacy, which is like broad cultural shifts. Legacy might include things like, if we're looking at World War II, the dawn of the nuclear age, the formation of the United Nations. Possibly you might want to put the emergence of the United States and the Soviet powers in there. right? Long-term effects would be things like, or yeah, maybe the decolonization of Asia might be something you want to put in the legacy section, right? Long-term effects, there's some overlap, right? Like, a lot of those things would also go very well. Also, things like, the shift between Britain owning the waves and the United States owning, right? But legacy could also include things like, we have a cultural horror of genocide now, because of the Holocaust, right? So this hasn't prevented genocide from happening by any. Unfortunately, when you research, you find out that are genocides all over the world, every day, all day, especially if your term includes the destruction of culture, whether that's by physical or non-physical means. It's happening right here in Canada. It's happening. Right. Sadly, we did not swear off genocide, but there's a limit to what culturally most of us are willing to put up with. That's a legacy, right? Also, our reluctance to use nuclear weapons, that's a legacy. Short-term effects, occupation of various countries, the sacking of a city, whatever, right? Specifications. This is an interesting. I don't think it's on Moon's article, so maybe you might want to go to and yeah, I know, Moon, that you're is a work in progress. This is cool. This is actually why it's a good example. Let's go to an open military conflict template and look at specifications, right? Which is the third tab underneath template specific prompts.
I've opened it.
There we go. Okay, so location type. You have a drop-down menu here. These are, is it a land battle? Is it an urban battle? Is it a battle? Is it a planetary or space battle? An extraplanar battle? Did it take place in a stadium, an arena? Right? Like, some of these are going to be overlaps, and some of these are going to be like, is it this or that, right? Like, in science fiction, if you're going to write about a space war, right? If you were talking about an assault on, I might use that as planetary, unless the fight almost entirely happened in space and nobody landed, in which case I might include it as a space battle, right? Yeah, stadium, arena, gladiatorial conflicts, sporting events. You might want to use them for a political debate too, even though it technically isn't. Like, most of these take place in TV studio rooms, but in our age anyway. Parent conflict. What conflict did this grow out of? Right? So if you're writing about the Battle of the Bulge, the parent conflict.
You cut out after you're writing about Battle of the Bulge parent conflict.
The parent conflict is World War II. Right? So location, this is a drop-down menu of, right? I am sure that the type of battle that Moon used is probably planetary for her World War III, because it took place all over the planet, right? I generally use planetary as my scale talking about.
Duck out and back in. You're cutting out a lot.
All right. So I was saying that Moon probably used planetary for her location for World War III. I generally use planetary as my location for a war in Game of Tones, like a word war, right? But I believe I called the Kin Beach battle urban because it, even though it took place mostly on the shores of and in a lake, right? Um, but it was directly interfacing with residential urban environment, so I felt that urban was a more accurate description of the type of battlefield and conditions it was dealing with. For instance, none of the living troops wanted to use mass destructive shit. They were not shooting at each other with, like, they were not dropping bombs on it with aircraft, right? Because they would blow up the residential houses over there, you know?
Or using big tanks.
Yeah, exactly.
People have to live here when we're done killing zombies, you know?
Conflict sides we've already discussed in, I think, a lot of detail. But breaking down the specifics, create a new conflict side there, dear. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
there did. Yeah.
all right. So now we have that window open, right? So the first thing you're going to see is coalition side name, Allied Forces, Woodland Family Alliance, right? Whatever, you know. Uh, one side, you know, Donald Trump, the other side, Hillary Clinton, right? Whatever, you know. Strength, like I said, number of troops, how many, and what types. Um, Casualties, dead and wounded, right? And you can divide that by different types of troops, or, military and civilian, or whatever. Objectives. These were um, mostly the tactical intents of the strategic goals, right? Objectives to control the oil supply of North America, right? To repel the German invaders, to secure the Volga Pass, right? Whatever. Those are
Hmm.
objectives. What are you trying to do? Why is the army there? Why is the navy there? Right? The specific goal, to take Vimy Ridge, whatever,
Mm.
you know. Organizations, if you click on that, will give you the various organizations in your world, right, that might be involved. So this is where I would include House Lapin, House Smellies, House Iloris, right? Leaders, that will lead you to character articles. So
Rabbit, rabbit,
really
rabbit,
handy
rabbit, rabbit,
cross-reference
rabbit,
stuff.
rabbit, 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 rabbit,
And that, I think,
rabbit,
takes us completely
rabbit,
through
rabbit.
the template there, other than
Yeah.
the stuff that's present in every other article. And thank you for being willing to use your work in progress as an example, Moon.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Moon.
Oh, yeah, I love unordered lists. Getting back on mobile. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Close.
Actually, Stretch, that's a good point. Stretch observes that he feels, or read, that in the Battle of Agincourt, one of the things that decided the battle there was French greed, ignoring the archers and going after
Hmm.
the knights for the ransom money. Now, that's
Yep,
a valid
that's a
point.
fact.
And you should be aware of that, guys. Money is a motivation for war.
Yeah.
Often
The
it is one of,
motivation for war.
right? And if you create conditions that reward certain outcomes and goals financially, people will try to do that to the detriment of other things. Trying to go after the knights for ransom money was tactically stupid. However, individual soldiers are people, and they do
And
not
they
really
want
care
money.
about the goal of the king. They care about benefiting themselves, right? So they're going to do the rational thing to do that, right? One of the big things that they did in the Napoleonic Wars in the Navy, right, is that in the British Royal Navy, they rewarded the taking of a French ship with prize money, right? So British commanders would often take stupid risks in order to try to get the ship rather than blowing it up, right?
Yeah.
Because they could make money. So they would bring it back and they would get the prize money. That's a lot of money. And sailors did not get paid terribly well. So big motive, right? On the other hand, what the British Navy would do, this was actually to the benefit of their strategic goal, right? Which was they wanted to have more ships so they could control more of the water. Now they can do this in two ways. They can build them, which takes time and resources, which they have a limited access to because they live on a damn island, right? Or they can steal them, right? This is a valid tactic. We've seen this all the time in the war in the Ukraine right now. What are the Ukrainians famous for doing right now is stealing Russian tanks, right?
Yep.
Of course, because they can't make as many tanks as the Russians can. You know, Russians are bigger. They got more money. They got more resources. Okay, we'll just take theirs. Screw it.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this is a good opportunity for another break because I need to rest my voice for a couple minutes.
Yeah, it's a good idea. We're going to break for 10 minutes, 11 minutes, 30 seconds ish.
Yep.
Okay, so.
And then when we get back, we're going to do what I promised, which is start breaking down the individual articles on the short list and why they made it. If you have comments or questions in the meantime, now's a good time.
Okay.
I heard Tempest laughing. Yes, you should.
No, I said clapping.
Oh, you were clapping?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that was Moon clapping.
Oh, yay.
Thanks, Moon.
Okay, I take a break. I'll be right back.
Okay. Hey, honey, you want on Blue Sky? I'll send you a code. It's not mine, it's from somebody else, but there you go. Somebody was like, I've got a bunch of these. I was like, can I have one? I want to get my husband off of the dead bird. It should be. It was for me, so. Yeah, you can do it that way. Doesn't matter. Or you can do it from your computer if you feel like typing the code, but. If you want, I can put you on my own thing, but otherwise just go with Blue Sky. You can be a Quake at Eli Quake if you really wanna, but you know.
So, Tempest,
Huh?
did you see who made the short list?
Yes.
Did they do it on World Ample today?
I don't think so, but
Oh,
I saw the article.
yeah. Sable was afraid she was being nepotistic, eh?
Nah.
Because you're her friend, right? And then I was reading through the articles, and it just happened to be in the list of the articles that I was reading through, and I read it, and I went, "This is actually really good,"
Thank
you know.
you.
So I said that to Sable, and she said, "Okay, well, since I can say that somebody else has really thought this is a good article too, I can at least shortlist it without feeling guilty."
Yeah, I do.
Right?
If let's put it this way, if I win, I will be mad because there are better articles. But I don't think I'm going to win. I shouldn't. Like shortlist I can understand, but winning
Yeah.
no, I should not.
Well, I can't tell you who won.
I have
She,
guesses. I have
yeah.
guesses. Mostly because Sable was like, "I've got these articles." So I'm like, "Okay, well, of these ones, I would pick either of these two. And here's why for this one, and here's why for that one." I'm not
Yeah.
going to say which ones I'm talking about because that's not fair. But
Yeah. We don't need to say that on air. Yeah. No, I can't say who won. I don't know.
yeah.
Right? I mean, she sent me
What is it?
a, a private message with her speech and stuff in it. Right? But I never pay attention to her.
Yeah. I mean, why would you? I mean, what?
I like you know she's taking her sweet time.
Yep.
Let's see how it goes in chat. Stream's been going great, Miko. Okay, have a good nap, hon. Love, love.
Hello, I'm back.
Hello.
I am back. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
So good.
Oh, I'm gonna get some pop. 1 sec.
Did you get signed up on? What's your handle? Aquake. We have a Buddha on Blue Sky.
Yay!
I haven't gotten an invite to Blue Sky, so.
Neither
Only
have
reason
I.
I got one for Buddha is because I found somebody who's like, I've got a bunch of asks, I was like, can I have one? I just want to get my husband off the dead bird.
All right, now I'm actually back. All right.
Are you really?
Yep.
There's just coffee in here. You still got a little less than 2 minutes for the break.
Yep. No worries.
Ha, there you are. Now you're showing up.
Who?
Buddha on Blue
Ah.
Sky.
Ah.
Good day for it, because Blue Sky's having errors today because everyone's like, oh, Twitter, that's a trash fire. I'm leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, that's just end of the break.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I guess I will actually put my camera back on. Or do I need to? Because we're about to go over a bunch of articles.
Yeah.
Right? Right.
Yep.
Welcome back, everybody. Okay, I'll put my camera on briefly. Hello. No, that's screen share. That's not what I want. Okay, there we go. I am back. Aw, Miko hurt
Welcome
herself.
back.
That's no good. Yes, enjoy your nap. Hello, is a tempest.
Hello. I figure
Hello.
if you're on cam, I'll join you. Keep you company.
Awesome.
I'm not doing it on camera. I am not dressed for it.
That's fair.
Which is to say, he's basically sitting there in his underwear. Just,
I'm not. I'm wearing shorts. Real
Hey,
shorts.
Kit. Yeah,
Hey,
it
Kit.
has been some time. I've been off because, first of all, I took my break, and now I have a throat infection, which I still have. I have to get a root canal. They're not doing a root canal until like the 5th of September now. I am
Well,
not
that's
impressed
only
by
like
this.
a
But
week and a half from now.
yeah, it's getting closer now. But basically, I'm going to be
2 weeks.
streaming sporadically until then.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
hey, Author Goddess. Good to see you. Hello.
Hello,
EAG.
AG.
Nice to see you. How are
And I
you?
haven't been streaming because I've been dealing with a medication issue. It's evening out. It's just taking time.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, but I am probably going to stream again on Tuesday because there's a bunch of stuff that I wanted to cover today, but I can see that we're not going to have time, so I'll do it as a separate
Mhm.
stream. And that is, how do you think about a war? If you're going to write about a war or you're going to set one up in your campaign, what do you do? Right? What would cause a war? How do you think about the causes? How do you plan the
Shitty to hear
strategic
there,
goals?
AG.
Oh no. I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Hugs.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear it. Okay. Yeah, I guess. All right. So I sympathize. I'm gonna, I guess, carry on. You need to talk. Let me know.
Yeah.
um. Okay. So yeah, when you're thinking about a war, uh, what starts a war? Or who might want to start a war? What do they try to accomplish? How do you think about the strategic planning of it? Because I like to say that if you're going to write about a war, right? Say you're going to write about it in your novel, or you're going to have your PCs participate in it in your campaign, right? You kind of need to know what's going on in the broader picture, why it's happening, and how things are going to unfold unless the character or the PCs intervene. And the reason why your character might not know that, right? As a matter of fact, some of the better war novels are written from a perspective where you're writing from the character's point of view, and they're not going to know everything that's going on in the war, right? I've got a junior officer character, and he has no idea what's going on in the broad scope of things. He's kind of, making intelligent guesses, right? But he doesn't really know, right? So um writing writing that perspective for the character makes a war interesting, makes it seem a little bit more overwhelming. Your character doesn't have to know, but you do, right? You have to know because then you can be like, okay, so the next interesting thing that's going to happen is I'm going to put the character over here, right? Or while this was going on, this other thing happened, which was really shitty and affected the character personally, but he wasn't there, right? Or, oh, the PCs didn't pick up my clue that they ought to go to the city of Waterdeep to go intervene with this guy who's going to hire mercenaries. So the mercenaries are going to go over and trash one of the PC's villages, which is nearby, right? Like you need to know how that's going to unfold so that you can have the characters react. And yeah, so I'm going to get into more detail about that in a different stream. I will say right off the top of my head, the best thing that I can recommend to you if you want to understand the thinking behind making your protagonists and antagonists smart in a war is this book right here, as it has been for millennia. This book, Sun Tzu, The Art of War. This is like War for Dummies, and it breaks down everything that you might need to know in terms of strategy and tactics in simple, easy to follow principles.
That's a particularly good version of the book because it's got the original translation and a very good Mandarin translation.
Yes, of course, there are limits, But if you're just getting started, cannot recommend it enough. Yeah, obviously, Sun Tzu is writing from a much more ancient perspective, right? And some of the stuff he says is not going to apply in an urban battlefield in the modern era, right?
Well, not
But
directly.
but overall, the principles are pretty solid. So yeah, but we can get into more detail about that on Tuesday. So anyway, now we're going to break down the different articles on the short list and why they made it.
Okay.
So I'm going to spend a moment closing a couple tabs here just to make sure that things actually function. I don't think I'm going to need that one again. Okay. All right, so the first article on this list we've already gone over briefly, which is the War of Sunset Pass. I will share the links in the chat while Aaron is showing them on screen.
Yeah.
The reason why this article made the list is, like I originally said, this is a great example of an overview of a war, a summary that gives you all the important and relevant information without overwhelming you, and it doesn't have a lot of words. It really doesn't need it. It's, if you want to know more details about this war, you can look up the individual battles that he talks about, or they talk about. I don't know if it's he, right? You could look up, I'm sure there will be future articles on strategic importance of things. I'm getting the sense that this is actually kind of a plot outline for this war, as opposed to a, fully fleshed out and fully thought about war article. But it doesn't have to be more than that. It gives you everything you need right there, which is, what's the important information? Who's fighting? Why are they fighting? What are the circumstances that led up to the fight? How did the fight progress? What was the outcome? And why did it progress that way? Which is things like conditions and, resources and whatever else. Logistics will win more wars than ordnance.
Lose them.
But yeah, right. And then the outcome, right? What was the short-term outcome? Like, who was victorious? What did this mean for the world at large? Did this leave any kind of cultural legacy? They leave you a place for things like writing about, like, did it appear in literature anywhere? What did people write about it in the future? All that stuff. This is the important stuff, right? And that is why it's all in the templates. But you don't have to use the template. Woven Fire did not, and yet they had all the important information. Okay, moving on to the next one. Wars of the Continent by Barbarossa Sparklebeard. Now, this article, I really wish Barbarossa had had more time to write. I know that he was kind of whipping off his competition articles with 2 or 3 days to spare right before the end. Right? And if he'd had more time, he would have fleshed this out even more. But even so, this is an excellent example of a very well-written military conflict article. He starts with, what is this, right? The Wars of the Continent are a series of revolutions started on the continent of Setica against the various imperial powers which controlled colonies there. Starting in the southern reaches, the revolution spread like wildfire, and local military groups found themselves quickly overwhelmed. Okay, there we go. Now we know what's going on. Now we know why it's important, right? He's got all the relevant information. Like, he makes excellent use of the template. I would like in particular to draw your attention to his sidebar, starting with belligerence, strength, casualties, and objectives. This is what I want to see in this. Maybe you don't really have. I like numbers when it comes to conflicts, right? But you don't have to have like precise numbers. Notice that he's got things like, for the Sedecan revolutionaries, right? Army and militia, 91,000 estimated. It's an estimate. We don't really know how many there were. We think it was that many. For the Navy, we have this particular types of ships and how many of each, right? In the Adrian Imperial, we have, estimated troops, Imperial Navy, untold fleet percentage. We know that a percentage of their fleet was involved. We don't know what percent. I would prefer something a little bit more specific, like they committed a third of their fleet, but you know, good enough, right? And there were Sedecan loyalists and Adrian Imperial Army, and they're different. They're different types of troops, right? Because your Imperial Army are full-time soldiers. They're trained, they have equipment, etc., right? The loyalists are just guys who joined the fight because they happen to agree with that side and they live there, right? They're going to be less well trained. They're going to have less access to equipment, right? It matters, right? Barbarossa also included things like the dead from disease or starvation, which is something that is often underestimated when you're writing about a military conflict. People really don't take that, the secondary kill, as it were, into
Dysentery has
consideration.
killed more soldiers than bullets in the entire history
Yep.
of warfare.
Dysentery. Yeah. Facts right there, guys.
Yep.
So yeah, this is still a very well written article. It's not complete, but it is very well written. Okay. Tempest is fired figuratively. This is a brilliant example of how the military conflict article template applies to things other than battles and wars. This is about a quote-unquote political debate. What this actually is a family argument among two members of monarchy. But in monarchies, this is how wars can be started, right? Family arguments have broad-reaching consequences.
Mm-hmm.
This was addressed with a lot of humor, right? In a way, this is kind of like a satire, this article entirely. But Tempest has all the relevant information that you need there in a military conflict. They've got the belligerents, Queen Sable versus Prince Tempest, right? Strength, types of troops. Queen Sable, her acidic wit, her love and concern for her sibling. Prince Tempest, their stubborn badger blood, their determination to protect Sable at all costs. Types of troops and how many. Right? Casualties, Sable's temper, Tempest temper, Tempest position as an Owsla member. The Owsla being the elite guard that protects Queen Sable, right? They got everything there, right? They've got the deployment, right? Queen Sable decided to go talk to Prince Tempest personally to say, "You're fired from my elite guard because I don't want you to get killed." In the prelude section, right? Tempest has a breakdown. In the previous word war that just happened.
Wait, go on.
Okay, in the previous word war, which happened, 6 of Sable's kids died and became zombies. Right? After that, Sable went, "You know what? Fuck this. I don't particularly want any of my members of my family becoming part of my royal guard whose job it is to throw themselves in front of zombies for me. No, you're fired. Out you go." Right? Not to mention that Tempest was standing in for a missing Owsla member, namely DM Stretch, who returned. So, deployment. Sable assigned herself to go talk to Prince Tempest. And Prince Tempest prepared to defend themselves. Right? Battlefield took place in a hallway in the Warren, right? Like it's got everything you need. Conditions, right? Queen Sable had the upper hand because she was the queen and therefore in charge. The engagement details of the engagement, which Queen Sable took Prince Tempest aside before dinner and told them they were being fired. Prince Tempest exploded, possibly literally. Maintenance reports indicate there weren't scorch marks on that area of the ceiling before this. Yeah, because they're powers are fire, and the debate ensued. While Sable agreed with the points Prince Tempest made, she shot down all attempts by the Prince to worm out from being fired. Yeah, that was the engagement. Outcome. We have outcomes of the fact that, first of all, one of the other characters was apparently broadcasting this over the PA system, the emergency PA system to the rest of the city,
Mhm.
supposed to be used for wartime because they had stolen it to do some karaoke, not realizing, right? And then there is a secret, which I've put under what, or actually, no, Tempest put it under. Sorry, I designed this box, but Tempest used this, right? That was a secret outcome of this that is not well known, right? So you can use spoiler boxes in the section too, which is another reason why this is on the short list, because that's a great example of how to use a spoiler box, right? And what information might apply. And what the spoiler box says is that secretly, um, Commander Stretch and Commander Katoipoi went to see Prince Tempest and said, "Okay, so you've been fired from. We can't follow the Queen into this one environment, but you can. So how about your job is secretly to protect her? None of us will tell her plausible deniability, right?" And Tempest went, "Sure."
Secret Auslöbahn. Secret Auslöbahn.
Right. So this is great, and one of the reasons why it's here is because yes, it has all the relevant information. This absolutely qualifies as a conflict that you might deal with. A family argument within a monarchy is important, especially if it has political implications, which this does significantly. One of the results of this was that Tempest was appointed to a position of leadership that's kind of like the hand of the queen, right? And therefore now has Oslo of their own, right? So yeah, right. It's a masterful satire, and that's why it's here.
I don't know if you did this on purpose or not there, Tempest,
Hmm?
but the song is called Oops, I Did It Again.
So it is. No, I didn't do that on purpose, but I'll. You know what? I don't. I can't change it. First of all, and
No.
I'm not going to.
What's that?
Stretch says, more correctly, the casualties: Sable's temper, Tempest's temper, and the last remnants of Commander Stretcher's sanity.
Come on, Stretch. We know better.
You can't
No,
claim you had any sanity left. You lie.
yeah, like
Oh,
it's
yeah,
great.
man. That's not how this
No.
works.
Okay. Next article on the list is Lendus Uprising by Jester.
We get there. And this uprising by Jester percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Jester, yeah, percentage.
This is
Lendus
just an
uprising.
all around well written military conflict article about a rebellion. It is a sci fi conflict, which I think is cool because I think that sci fi is often underrepresented in this category, right? It breaks everything down in easy to understand detail, right? And it's also in part a labor conflict that started this uprising because people were forced to work in dangerous conditions, and they said, you know what, we're done with this shit, and the fight started, right? More or less. Like, that's really a oversimplification. They
Yeah.
break it down in much more detail, including, the course of the battle. Sorry, excuse me, one sec. I really liked it because, first of all, uh, labor conflicts are give them, and I think it's really focused on
You're
that.
cutting out again. Can you could jump out and back in the call and repeat your last one?
Okay. So, labor conflicts are more important to history than we give them credit for. A lot of political conflicts start in labor, right? We don't want to be forced to slave away at this ridiculous condition. No, we will not eat cake. Fuck you. We're going to war, right? And um, something that the oligarchs of the world might be a little better inclined to remember. Sooner or later, people go, no, 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 no.
Yeah, understand that uh, the wealth inequality right now in the United States is worse than it was at the beginning of the French Revolution.
Yeah, and sooner or later, people aren't going to eat cake anymore.
More.
No. Yeah.
I think I'm.
Incidentally, I will be right back. I need to go check the mail. I'll be back in a few minutes.
No worries. Since I'm not on camera at the moment, I'm because we're on another screen. I'm going to turn off my camera. One sec here. I got to cough again.
With you there, author goddess. It's the only ethical meat. And
Okay, I
it's
think I'm
committed
back.
the dual crime of being pink and delicious.
Yeah. All right.
Human, I'm talking about.
I also really like the fact that this particular uprising did not end well for
No.
the rebels who were inspired to act because of the conditions of their oppression. There was a peasant rebellion going on somewhere, everywhere, during the entire Middle Ages.
Yeah.
Most insurgencies by people oppressed under working conditions fail. But enough of them succeed or cause massive damage that you should probably still not do that. Um, all right. Moving along, we'll discuss the assassination of Tobias Contari by Amethyst Scribe. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot. I said I was going to share the links, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Well, you can find them all here in the short list, which is on the sidebar in my shortlist article there. But individually, where's the last one? I shared the Tempest is fired, right? Okay, so
Nope.
I didn't?
Nope.
Okay. All right, so Tempest is fired is here. The Lendis uprising is here. And this is the one we're currently looking at, the assassination of Tobias Contari. Now, this is a Shadowrun conflict that takes place around the actions of a small group of Shadowrunners. If you're not familiar with the setting, that's going to mean nothing to you. If you are familiar with the setting, you'll be like, oh, cool. So this was like a campaign that somebody did, and then they wrote about it as a military conflict. Yes, absolutely. Right? They have, again, right, all the important information, who fought, why they fought, right, what led up to this, what people's objectives and motivations were. this author did not understand what strength is supposed to be used for in the sidebar, like how it's intended to be used in military conflicts. This is one of the examples of these were the advantages that either side held, right? As opposed to the number of people who fought on each side, right? But and what kind of troops, but otherwise they have all that important information within the body of the article, right? So um I love a good cyberpunk conflict, and awesome. I don't think there is anything wrong with using your role-playing game or your war game or even your video game, right, as a basis for outlining a military conflict. I can tell you one thing, and that is that most of the people who write military fiction that you've heard of looked to some real life battle as inspiration for whatever battle they were writing about. I borrow from World War II and Napoleonic War battles a lot. So, you want to get this from your war game? Have at it, Hoss. I think that there's a reason why war games are designed to simulate war, and they work, right? So,
Okay.
speaking of, our next example is Operation Sledgehammer, which is also a war game that I understand was personally designed. Like you read this in the comments section, right? This guy was playing a war game his buddy designed, and this was the outcome with embellishments. I love it. He's got like technical layouts of the types of troops, what people were trying to accomplish. This was a battle that took place during a planetary assault, a land battle that takes place during a planetary assault. There were mechs, there were tanks, right? Like I could definitely see this in a different context in a mech warrior game, right? We have layout of numbers of troops, the types of troops, it's all there in the sidebar, right? Numbers of casualties, and I love the end result. This is a great example of how you can win the battle and lose the war, right? Now, a lot of these technical specs might not mean anything to a lot of people, and your brain just might go, I don't have to know what an A4B Punisher MBT is exactly. I know that it's probably a mech, right? And it sounds like a big mech, doesn't matter, right? He'll have an article about that, or they'll have an article about that somewhere else, right? And you can read that if you want to. I personally don't care. I don't think anything like that actually matters. Like, you need to understand what the technical capabilities and limitations are of the equipment you write about, but your reader doesn't. What they have to know is, oh, this was big and tough, and there were more of these guys than that guys, and they kicked those guys' asses. Or these guys who didn't have nearly as many guys as those guys were really clever, and they kicked the other guys' asses. That's what we need to know, right? But this lays out how and why. So, really good work. The Kinray Island
This way.
Offensive by
Okay.
Summerland is
Okay.
the next one.
Still looking at that one. Okay.
Oh, yes. And the other thing about Operation Sledgehammer, they gave me a map. It was a battle map. It has red lines on it. The red lines show the lines of attack. The obstacles show why they happened in that way. Very helpful. Not necessary, right? Not required. Many articles on this. I didn't pay any attention to art formatting, CSS. I don't give a shit. None of that's important. I didn't consider that at all, right? But all other things being equal, having a map helps you to picture the battle and how it unfolded, right? All right, the Kinray Island Offensive is a let me see, which one was this? This is the yes. There was a trade blockade, right? And an attempted annexation, right? It was a coalition force and the Union of Celestial Kingdoms, so big scale conflict, right? There were, there were naval, armored, and air elements, right? So this very much read to me like a World War II type battle,
Yeah.
right? I could see it, an alternate reality, right? But all somebody's individually created world, right? We have a breakdown of the different types of troops. We have the start and end date, right? Who won? A detailed explanation of how and why they won, right? This person chose to do something which I think is really clever, and I'd advise you to do this if you're going to write about a big conflict like a war or a long-term battle like the Battle of Britain, right? They broke down the engagement into sections, right? We have the native partisan assaults, which is how it started, the storming of Lynn Bay, the rebel response, right? Sea and Air, Battle of Mudskipper Creek, so this included things like important battles and conflicts and important theaters and important strategic goals and kind of an overall summary of what happened. Really good stuff. The end also was really useful details in terms of, uh, one side surrendered. We have some details about how that happened. The overall outcome once that surrender had taken place, the aftermath, and the historical significance and long term effects. We even have some notes about literature, right? Which is really cool. Right. Great stuff all around. All right. The next one on the list is the, I would say, Caius Independence War by Casey Kramer. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that correctly. This is a space battle. I like space battle.
Diesel punk space.
Yeah, diesel punk space. I've seen this world before. I was hoping for some really cool stuff as far as like the war writing went out of this world. I got what I wanted. This is great. The only real critique I have about this one is that we have detailed information about the Kaya sector revolutionary fleet and its
Yeah.
components, but we have nothing about the Aldo Torre Colonial Trade Company and what they were able to muster. Right? I would like more information, but hey, maybe somebody ran out of time. Overall, I
Yeah.
liked where they were going with this, right? And it's a well written article overall. We've got a very clear layout. These are there was a colonial politics thing going on, right? Then there was a crackdown on migration and travel rights. The aggrieved smaller party went, hey, screw you, you can't do that. The fight started, right? Um, the, yeah. Again, it's just like really, it's really well covered as far as that, all just the whole overview goes. Um, yeah. What I said in my notes was that I thought this embodied a realistic understanding and appreciation of the process of asymmetrical warfare. That the author's grasp of the theaters of war was excellent, and their reasoning for strategy and tactics are sound in an interstellar universe. Yeah. There's a reason why science fiction writers, especially space opera writers, write about space wars as if they are naval wars, and why it's often a space navy instead of an air force, right? Which would seem more logical, but when you're fighting a navy war, what you're trying to do is control ports to access bodies of water and the routes between those ports, basically, right? Because you're fighting over access to the water between ports and islands, right? Space is like that. It's a bunch of big empty, and regardless of the technology or techno magic you're using to get from point A to point B, you want the fastest and most efficient way possible and safest, right? yeah, okay, Cape Horn is the way you get around to, get to various points, but it's a bloody dangerous piece of water, right? If you can find better routes, you're going to try, right? So there's going to be areas of space that are like that, regardless of how you do it. So thinking about it like a naval war is usually a better way of looking at it from a strategic standpoint, so that you can plot out how your dudes are going to fight their war, right? So, all right, and this was really well done in terms of that. It's an excellent space opera war. Okay, this one gets here by sheer originality almost, although they
Siege of
actually,
Silent
again,
Spires.
yes, they actually have all of the elements that are really important for a military conflict as well. We know. Okay, see you later there, Kit. There'll be a VOD, and I will be putting it on the same page where I revealed the short list. So if you want to check out the rest of it later, it'll be there. Have a good campaign. Have fun. All right, Siege of the Silent Spires. Right. Okay. So this is we have all the important information about what you need. Who's fighting? Why are they fighting? What's the cause of this? How did this start? How did the progress go? How did it end? Right. But it's weird, and I love it because it's weird. Basically, there's this place called the Silent Spires. It's a city. They think, but they have no idea what's there. As far as they know, there's no living people there. And then all of a sudden, the city starts growing towards this one kingdom that can see it over there. And they're like, why the hell are you coming this way? Is this an attack? Right? They debate about it for a while, decide it is an attack, and decide to attack back. Right? Which is completely ineffectual. Basically, it does absolutely fucking all. They
Attack the
fight it, they
walls of the
can't seem to
city.
stop it. What's that?
What are you gonna do? Attack the walls of the city?
Well, that is effectively what they do. Yeah, they try to bomb out the structures with magic, right?
Uh,
And stuff like that, right? How do you attack a growing structure? They treat it kind of like dealing with Zerg in the spacecraft StarCraft game, right?
mm-hmm.
You need more of an area of effect weapon than individual targeting weapons, and they try to do that, and it just doesn't do anything. They make some short-term damages here and there, but nothing happens. And then eventually the city just stops moving towards them, the Silent Spires. It just goes, nah.
Mm.
And they still don't know why. They don't know what happened. Right? The long-term effects of this ineffectual war that kind of devastated their economy, right, is that they kind of give up on this war bullshit for a while. Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Really well thought out, well written. I'm especially fond of the section on literature and whatnot. We have breakdowns of epic poetry, historical accounts, novels, plays, songs, diaries, folklore, right? Really well
Yeah.
thought out, that section in particular. So, excellent. The War of a Thousand Stars by Gray Lion is next. Did I share the link to the spires? Yes, okay. This is about a war of millennia that occurs between the gods, basically, and the powers that be. As a result, some of the things that I like to see in a military conflict article are not here. For instance, numbers of troops and type. We're talking about interplanar war over millennia. Where would you start? Right?
Yeah.
So, Gray Lion has skipped that section. What he has done is he has laid out when things started, significant events and currents of the war, right? The parties that are fighting, rather than including them as individual belligerents, he kind of describes them in general terms because, the elder gods, the new gods, right? They fight. Sometimes they fight each other, sometimes they fight other elder gods or other new gods. Sometimes they're in it in groups, sometimes they're in it for themselves, right? Then there's their monotheism, which is also in conflict with this, right? And a side that represents the force of death, right? And what they're fighting over. If you're going to write about like an epic gods war over millennia, this is probably the best way to handle it. Yeah, okay. I did share the link. Excuse me.
Okay, I'll give Gray Lion a like. You take another break?
Do we need another break?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take another few minutes of break. We're about halfway through, I think, the short list, so good time. We'll be back in a
Yeah.
couple minutes.
Maybe we might want to think about doing something else and doing this in the next one.
We can get through this in half an hour.
Okay.
I am here. I've just been drinking coffee.
Okay.
How doing?
Good.
Cool. I am still trying to come to terms with the sorcery that is compression socks.
Yeah, you're diabetic, aren't you?
I'm not diabetic.
Mm.
I do, however, have POTS.
Okay.
POTS.
I know what POTS is.
Yeah.
Can't remember what it stands for, but
I never can remember either. It's
yeah.
postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. I've been treating it, sort of vaguely, by adding extra salt to my diet.
Yeah.
But no one has ever told me, it would be helped if you wore compression socks.
Mm. Yeah.
Hello, I am back.
Welcome back.
Thank y'all. And welcome back to you. How did the mail go?
It was very hot, and then I needed to sit down with some cold coffee.
This makes sense.
Yes.
I have lots
Also,
of cold coffee.
I'm still kind of like, what is this sorcery about compression socks? I feel old. I do feel old, but
Happens to us all.
yeah.
Hold on a second. I'll let my cat in the room so that hopefully he'll stop howling. I doubt it, but. Hello? Do you want in? Come in. Come in. Come in.
Ah, yes. Scoot, scoot.
Meow. Apparently, I can bribe my cat to shut up with treats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you bribe him with?
Butter.
Oh yeah.
Tracks.
Lactose-free butter, of course.
Yes. All right, are we ready to continue?
I believe so.
Okay. All right, so currently we're back.
Okay.
We're looking at this article, the Sergai campaign on Damus, or Damus.
Okay. Through a campaign. Yeah.
Now, this is a fantasy world campaign, right? There is there's a big island or continent. It's not really clear exactly, right? There were people living there, dwarves and giants, or came to. They were immigrants that came where there were elves and dragons, and then a bunch of beast people decided they wanted to come in and live there, right? And basically took it over, right? To me, this reads a lot like the mythology around the Tuatha De Danann and the uh, Fomori people, right? It's got that kind of mythological feel to it, but they also include things like, rather than number of troops, because we're talking about a broad scale conflict that involves places that people live, they broke down things in terms of demography, right? They've got detailed maps of the process of the expansion, right? They've got just an explanation of the course of things. The elves fucked off basically, when the last survivors, stuff like that, right? It's really well laid out. I also liked the comparisons to modern conflicts like the West Bank, for example, right? um Israeli settlers decide they're going to move in and take
Palestinian.
Palestinian uh, homes areas. They're like, yeah, you know what? We like your place and we're now. The entire infrastructure supports the Israelis doing that. The Palestinians tried to defend their homes. The same thing happened with the colonization of North America, right? In the United States and Canada to some extent. Hey, you know what? We're settlers. We want to move into this area. People are, right? The indigenous people are like, nah, you know, fight takes place. The system is set up to support and the military strength is set up to support the settlers, right? Sometimes the American and British governments and French governments ended up getting in
And
conflicts.
Spanish governments.
And Spanish governments, yep, ended up getting in conflicts with the indigenous people that they didn't want to get into because they had an obligation to protect their citizens who'd started the fight,
Yeah.
So it reads a lot like both these things. So really neat that we've got both these elements. And it's just really interesting because it's got all of that. Right. Coltstad. Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, the next one is the Kaltstad Rebellion.
Give me a second.
Yep.
Okay, I'm there.
All right. So the Kaltstad Rebellion is yet a labor-driven conflict, right? And also the politics of state versus the politics of church, which is really interesting, right? Leaders in this area are apparently installed by the word of something called the ministry, right, and the Church of the Faceless. But then they're of course subject to the church and have to do what they are told, and in some cases this is not the best interests of themselves or their people. So this was one rebellion that took place in that area. And if I remember correctly, it also did not end well. Yes, the leader of the rebels was executed as a traitor. Yeah, that stuff happens.
Most rebellions end in tragedy.
Although I did not consider it in the judging, I would like to also say that I really appreciate the presentation of this article. It suits its setting. It gave me as much information about the setting based on the way it's presented as the information did itself. So, because I mean, dates don't mean anything when you're talking about fictional universes, right? But I get the feeling this is kind of a Slavic culture, and that's really cool, right? So, well done, you know, and maybe, yeah, we're kind of looking at industrial revolution kind of technology. It looks like, and sounds like from the way it's described, and so that was really well done. Again, I absolutely 100% did not give a shit about art, formatting, or CSS. I don't care. I did pay attention to maps, but otherwise I didn't care because I think it's a justified criticism that often the prettiest CSS ends up winning when maybe the content of something that comes from the Freeman account might be better. You're not entirely wrong. I agree with you, and I decided that as far as a military conflict goes, who cares, right? It's really not important. The content is the important element. So, okay, the Fotsu delegation by Korrigath, who was here at the beginning of the stream but probably left by now. This article completely did not follow the template at all. 100% ignored it because it's a story. It's a very well written prose story that includes all of the important information that you need about a conflict. Who's fighting? Why did it start? What happened in the course of it? Right? How did it end? Why did it end that way? Who were the parties involved? What were they trying to accomplish? Right? It's got all of that, and it's got it in a prose format. Definitely worth noting. If you just cannot make head nor tails out of the template, this might be the way to handle it. Also very beautifully presented, by the way, but again, not important to my judging.
No.
The Battle of Frankfurt Bridge by ECC Books. I noticed when I was reading this. Oh, should I wait a minute for you to get there because you're liking and stuff?
Yeah, I'm just looking at different things. Did I like this article yet? No. Give me a second. Okay. Where are we here? Battle of Frankfurt Bridge. Okay.
This is just an all-around, excellently written military conflict article about a magical conflict, a fantasy conflict. That's hard. I sometimes think that I have been not marked as, I don't know, just not judged on the magical aspect of some conflicts that I've written about because it's not as easy to define it as it is something that involves a certain number of knights, for example. But Chris has managed to do a pretty decent job of that. It's got all the important information, all the results. Like above all, my criteria was for judging, I'm going to read this and I want to understand your war or your battle or your skirmish or whatever, and I want to know what happened, why it happened, and what the outcome was. I want that to be clear. That was that was above all the criteria, right? So he has done a great job of this. He said in his comments section in response to somebody that he has been looking at a bunch of military conflict articles, trying to figure out how to get better at them. It worked. I read the last military conflict of his that I read was not nearly so concise, right? It was much more rambling in terms of what happened because Chris is a writer. He's not a war gamer. He's not a role-playing game even much, right? He is a writer, and what he's trying to, when he looks at something like this, he's looking at it from the story aspect. And remember that I said that's a cool way to write about a war and, for your character not to know everything that's going on. But in an article like this, you have to know what actually went on in the big picture, right? He has done a great job of laying that out. I'm very impressed. I got a feeling like the Battle of Mordor from this, you know? Like it just has that kind of feel to it. It's excellent. It's well done. For the record, by the way, Tolkien is definitely considered to be military fiction for those who are, you know, interested in
Mm-hmm.
that particular genre, and people look to him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, just excellent points all around for that. All right. Um, The Wenzi War by Isaac.
Oh, okay. Let me get back to that. Okay.
Okay, so obviously this was very happened, but the circumstances, the
Okay,
outcome.
you gotta drop out of the call and drop back in. You just cut out most of that.
Okay.
Okay.
Again, this is a very well presented conflict where you have a very clear idea of what happened, why it happened, who was involved, what was the outcome, right? But the thing I liked in particular about this article is a keen understanding of complex politics that had an effect on the overall course of the war, why it started, and how it ended, right? And remember, I've said the war and politics are intrinsically linked. Isaac has done an amazing job of laying out the politics and how that affected everything. Right? It's very clever. I and it's really neat because these politics are complicated, but I understand them all clearly, right? The nature of the treaty that was made at the resolution of the war, right? And things about how the outcomes were not entirely what was intended, which is always cool, right? Just you want to understand about politics and war and how they're intertwined. This is a great example of it. Okay. The Scorching of Mercury by Nee. Annie is her actual name. I've seen her post, so we're going to call her Annie. I love me a good science fantasy conflict. This is science fantasy. Basically, what happened is radioactive angels came out of the sun and destroyed Mercury, which was inhabited. It's fantastic. This is obviously in the far future, right? 4 years, Sol standard calendar. Um, the current year is 220,022. All right. I love the specifics of the conflict, the way it is described. I don't really have numbers of troops here. We are talking about a planetary extinction event. So again, like when dealing with a gods war, that might just be beyond the scope.
Hmm.
But we do have a very clear, like, we've got a timeline breakdown of the course of the conflict, right? The significant points in it. We have easy to find references to important things that are part of this, like what's the scourge, radioactive angels, right? And we can find all that information. I understand the outcome. Also, I think the idea is very original. I like it a lot. We're talking about Jack Vance style sci-fi here, stuff that's so far future it feels like magic. It's cool. Ha! Saw Slingshot Showdown by Emily Armstrong. This is also a masterful satire that yet has all the relevant information you need for a military conflict. I'll give Aaron a moment to get there.
Yeah. Okay. Soft Slingshot Showdown. Mustard the ketchup.
This is from Emily's culinary punk world that most
Mm-hmm.
Anvilites are familiar with by now
Mm-hmm.
because it's won a lot of awards. It's very original, so I get that. This is the eternal conflict between mustard and ketchup. It's hilarious. Again, the CSS and the art is beautiful, but that was not a factor as to why it made the short list. It's because it's a clever satire that has all the important information about a military conflict. It's got the sides, why they were fighting, the course of the war, how it resolved, which is not the way you expect, by the way. Read the article, it's really quite hilarious. Yeah, and just plus the idea is clever. It is, right? I'm a sucker for a clever idea. I think most people are. It is a duel. I yeah. You really do get that feeling of, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's about to go down, right? Between two guys, and then a third guy shows up and goes, "Oh yeah, uh-huh." So, yeah. A lot of it more reads like a sporting event, but remember that's a perfectly legitimate conflict too. Emily chose to ignore the template in favor of their own designed presentation. That's fine. They have all the relevant information. It's cool. All right.
Rabbit, 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 rabbit,
Mediterranean
rabbit,
expansion
rabbit,
campaign. Did I share the link?
rabbit, rabbit, rabbit.
If I did. Yes, I did. Okay. Mediterranean expansion campaign by Ondo.
Okay, hold on a second. Okay, we gotta stop.
I have 3 to go.
Okay,
Okay.
be quick about it.
So this is basically a land and sea campaign that happens in an alternate Earth. It happened during the late 18th century, except that this is a world that is an Earth that is part of an interplanar sort of network, and there's aliens. Naturally, that changes history considerably. The world is clever. Again, we have all the relevant information. We understand exactly why things happened. I really enjoyed seeing the twist on actual historical polities and how they would react differently under these different conditions. I thought that was really smart. Um, yeah, it's because it's an overall campaign. We're speaking mostly in terms of goals and whether or not they were accomplished. That's probably the best way to handle a campaign. A treaty that resolved things, right? And long term consequences. So just good stuff all around. Um, the Battle of Antwerp. Battle of Antwerp by Tynan Tien.
Yeah, actually, I gotta say in this one, I gave her this one as part of the long list, right? Because I thought it was really well done, right? As far as the article went, right? I did not realize, I hadn't read closely that the British, American, and Dutch in this battle sided against France, whereas the Americans and the French sided against the British and Dutch in the reality of it.
Yeah,
I,
this
I,
is really clever alternate history.
yeah.
Really, really clever. And the thing about it is that I'm fairly familiar with the process of the Napoleonic Wars because they're one of the
Mm,
sources of inspiration that I have studied to direct my fantasy sci-fi space opera. Right. So I was like, wasn't that like Battle of Antwerp? That sounds familiar. And he's like, oh, yeah, Napoleonic Wars. I'm like, oh, yeah, right. I looked it up, and actually, in the real world, the Battle of Antwerp was the Siege of Antwerp, right? And
mm,
it took place near the end of things, right before Napoleon abdicated.
yeah.
In this, it's the Battle of Antwerp because with the Americans on the British side instead of the French side, uh, and being an independent monarchy in this world, they had resources that, like together the French already got hammered at this fight. They would
Yeah.
get creamed with some extra, like if there was backup on the other side, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that the out like clever alternate history can be really difficult to do. In some ways it can be more difficult than coming up with a battle completely off the top of your head, right? Because you have to you're always going to get some asshole that's going to argue with you and say, oh, that's not how it would go, right? um so you really got to think things through and have good reasons why everything happened differently if you're going to change something. This is really cleverly done. I think this is exactly what would have happened. I think that the political consequences make a great deal of sense. And overall, just again, we have all the important information. It's brilliant, right? It's really brilliant as a point of alternate history. The only thing I would again, minor criticism, I don't have a lot of information about what was happening on the French side, right? We don't have details filled in the template which was used, right? Like, was Napoleon directly in command at this battle? I think he said so, but it's not as clear. But otherwise, this is, I mean, this is really just very smart for anyone who has studied the Napoleonic Wars. This is very clever. I like the world in general. I also looked at an article of his called "The Kingdom of Canada,"
Mm,
which makes sense because Canada called itself a dominion because we didn't want to piss off our American neighbors who were not into monarchies at the time. So
yeah.
if the United States was a monarchy, we would be too, right? And according to his article, Canada became an independent monarchy that was governed by a British prince who became independently the King of Canada. And uh, they ceded British Columbia and the Yukon to Oregon, which makes sense. I'm opposed to British Columbia being part of the United States on principle, but from the historical viewpoint, that is a logical conclusion. So I approve
What did they
of the work.
call it?
What's that?
What did they call it?
It's still called British Columbia. It was settled as British
Weird.
Columbia. Right. So, yeah, just really clever alternate history and a good understanding of how the conflict would work and its political consequences. Vorkaz's invasion of Muskerbar. Mostly, this is just a really well written military campaign article.
Yeah.
This is there's, yeah, just to familiarize myself here. Yes. Okay. The big thing that I really liked about this in particular, aside from the fact that it has all the important information, it's a big kind of colonial power pushing into a settlement of less organized people, right? But there were two things that really struck me about this article. One is overall, it's a theme of this person is really aware of the effects of terrain on a battle. Terrain is important. Terrain dictates your fight. One thing is that there's only a couple of, like, they have to control a couple of significant bottlenecks because that's the only real access. So that dictates where you fight. And the other thing is the ground is really wet. And the colonial type forces are hampered by the fact that all of their tactics and all of their equipment is heavy armor. That's really not an advantage when everything's wet, as we saw
Nope.
in the Battle of Agincourt, speaking of which. So, yeah, I love that awareness. Also, again, we have clear delineation of the sides and the troops involved.
Mhm.
And last but not least, the Battle for Baden by the Vazdamet team. Vazdamet is, I see Angela Biskup, otherwise known as Solar Cat, as the kind of, like, I think it's of it as her world, but there's a whole team. Does a shift in a kitchen qualify as a military conflict? Hey, I know enough about professional kitchens that I would say probably yes.
It
Right, Tempest?
certainly can. I don't disagree at all.
Yeah, Tempest, as a
It was
professional
definitely a
pastry chef,
conflict when
says
I was in the
yes.
kitchen. When I was working in the kitchen, it was definitely a conflict because we used to like snap each other with towels and shit and chase each other around the kitchen with wet towels.
Man, you worked in a really nice kitchen, didn't you?
Yes. Yes, I did. It was the boss who started it, so we can't say that.
Yep, yep.
He was funny. I'll let you finish. Once my eardrums return.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm coughing a lot because there's like all smoke.
Yeah.
It is not doing good things for
Okay.
me. Okay, so this one is a space opera conflict, a planetary assault, right? A big Confederation navy decides that it's going to take over a small settlement of like a small planet or groups of planets. I don't remember. It was really small. They're like, yeah, no. Right? Since this takes place as part of a novel, right? We have the main forces. There's a large armada and then a defense force. Ultimately, the armada becomes known as the Turncoat Armada because they defect and join the small planet, which is called Freehold Planet of Baden. Right, so they join Baden, and I don't know why. That's hinted at in the process of the story, but we can tell that it's part of a novel. The novel is quoted a significant turning point where the protagonist decides that, they're going to act, right? And they're presented as a third side, one of the belligerents, the protagonist and supporting characters, who swayed the war in part probably by their diplomacy in dealing with the um, turncoat armada in defense of the planet. It's classic space opera. It's beautiful. Angela, I want to read your book. Please give me a copy or tell me where to buy one because this is my shtick. I'm down for
Well,
this
I got
shit.
it here. It's free. Their Patreon is where you get their book.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
It's called In Spite of the Inevitable.
Brilliant. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff I love to read. This is a
Hmm.
really good presentation of such a fight in the genre that I read and write in. It's excellent. It's excellent. And that's it. That's my breakdown of.
Oh shit! Looks like she doesn't have a Patreon anymore.
Aw.
Well, I'm gonna have to ask her because this is good shit and I
Yeah.
want it. All right. I'm back on camera. That's it for my breakdown of the military conflict category and the template and what it was that I thought was special about the articles that made the short list. There's also a long list. The long list is a list of articles that I thought were definitely worth a second look. They had something in them that I thought was really kind of, cool about them, and you should check them out. Either they did a really great job of giving you all the stuff you need for a military conflict, or they, did something really neat, original, or cool that I thought was worth drawing attention to. So if you get the chance, read them, right? They're
Claps for
they're awesome.
everyone.
Sorry, Moon?
Claps for everyone.
Yes, claps for
Yes.
everyone, exactly. And those of you
Yeah.
who made the short list, congratulations. Good luck on Saturday. All of you who deserve to win in your own way. Making a decision was really hard. I did make one. There is a winner,
Yeah.
right? But
I don't know who it
I
is because
I
I never
really
pay
had to kind
attention.
of parse it by millimeters at that point. And I would recommend any one of these articles as an excellent example of what you should do with a military conflict. Tuesday, we will be back. We will be doing a, kind of an unpacking of how do you plan a war for your novel or campaign. And I understand that Stretch is going to do something like that for his D&D campaign on his channel. Do you, is it for your channel, Stretch? Feel free to advertise your link if you want to.
Yes.
Oh, he said, okay, Chair has reached heater status. Be right back. Yeah, maybe he's away from the mic. Well, I'll shout him out anyway. Session
Oh,
0
there you
next week. New campaign starting next week or starting soon. There's his channel. Go check him out. His games are a lot of fun to watch. He's kind of a smart ass DM. I approve.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
And thank you everyone for joining us. Let's find someone to raid. We got another Anvilite up somewhere.
Strick's line
Uh,
is in
Oh,
Baldur's
good.
Gate 3. Never mind.
Riding with the bear.
I don't think they're an
Oh, the
Anvilite.
Navalite.
Not an Amplite.
Yeah, I feel we should do Anvilites because we're doing very specific World Anvil stuff. It only seems appropriate.
Yeah, let's raid Strixline then.
Yeah, why
Who cares
not?
if they play in Baldur's Gate 3? I've been kind of curious about it anyway. So.
Oh, that's fun. They've got a really neat interface that lets you, as part of the Twitch audience, participate in the player's game, where you can do things like vote on their response. Where they have like 3 dialogue options, and you can vote on which one. Direct interface, really cool. Also, the graphics are amazing. Like it's just a beautiful game to watch. I was watching it on Stretch's channel for a while there. So
I was watching Sparkles play it.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay, first episode in Stretch's new D&D campaign, which no spoilers, but it has to do with military conflict. Starting the week after that. Right? Yeah, books. I should advertise my books. If you would like to read my books, you can find most of them there. And now let's do the read. When you get there, don't forget to shout, prepare to be bored, because we are the privateers. I hope this has been helpful to you guys, and thanks for everyone who participated in the Military Conflict Challenge. Y'all gave me a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. So many good things to read. It was really cool. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, we raided.
And